chilliest night of the season so far. Thank you all for coming out. There's a special town meeting of November 14th, 2024. It being 7:04 and a quorum being present, I will call the meeting to order. The return of the warrant shows it has been properly served. The number of registered voters so far, registrars, was 135. Thank you. Thank you all for coming out. I'm sure that'll change throughout the night as more people come in. As tradition, I would like to ask you to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That was beautiful, thank you. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to the people up here at the head table. Select Board, Molly Keegan, Chair, Randy Iser, David Phil, Jane Nevin-Smith, and Amy Parsons. We've got a special guest tonight. We have an interim town administrator. You may know him as the chief, Michael Mason. He's been doing a great job, by the way. He's doing very good. Town Council, Matt Provencher from Mead, Tollerman, and Costa. Finance Committee, Amy Feidenkevitz, Chair. Paul Benjamin, Vice Chair. Shardul Parmar, Andy Klepacki, and Peter Matusko. And I am your moderator, Kirk Watley. I want to thank Hadley Media for setting up all the cameras, recording this. They've been doing an outstanding job with all the meetings leading up to this. Thank you, guys. And I do believe the Hadley Mothers Club is in the back. Hey, all right. Make sure to stop off and see them also. All right, no special guests. All right, the usual rigmarole for the decorum. The meeting will be conducted per town meeting time rules, as we have historically done. If you wish to speak to an article, please come to the microphone, wait to be recognized by the moderator. State your name, residential address each time you're speaking. Keep all comments relative to the article at hand. Please respect each other. Do not refer to the previous speaker by name. Use previous speaker instead. You may speak as many times as you feel necessary, but please give others a chance before returning to the microphone. If necessary, I'll ask you to wait until others have had a chance to speak. Direct your comments to the moderator. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less at the discretion of the moderator. And all amendments, the forms are in the back, they're green paper, must be submitted in writing as soon as the amendment is offered. And as we found out a couple of meetings ago when my phone went off, please silence your electronic devices. It would be appreciated. All right. I'll be reading the articles in motion form, asking for a second, and then we will have open conversation. Article 1, move the town vote to increase the fiscal year 2025 general fund budget by $268,102 as funding. Therefore, raise and appropriate and transfer from available funds as shown in Table A1 as presented at the November 14th, 2024 special town meeting and incorporate references herein. Is there a second? And we have a second. Interim Town Manager.
Okay, good evening everyone. Bear with me. I'm usually up here to talk about a cruiser and now I'm talking about everything else. I did want to take one quick moment before we jump into this just to say thank you to a bunch of people who make this town meeting go for you folks. The PowerPoint behind me, the warrants that you have in your hands, all the budget forms and the budget sheets, they would not be possible and you would not have them without Jennifer, Sanders James, who works out of the Select Board office, Linda Sanderson, who is our treasurer, obviously Jessica helps put together these meetings, and Dan Zadanek and Sue Glowatsky. They are on the finance team, and they are the ones that check and double check the numbers that you have in front of you. So I just wanted to say a big thank you to all of them. Okay, so I'll try to keep it short, and then we'll leave room for plenty of questions if you have them. So Article 1, as the moderator mentioned, the total budget increase for Article 1 that we request is $268,102. This money is requested to essentially cover any added costs from the FY25 budget. We had 2 new unions form that required contract negotiations. Both of those unions were formed and agreed to 1-year contract terms. And then we also had a place called the Collins Center did a full study of wages across municipal employees. And so what you will see in front of you, I think you have the budget sheet in front of you as well as what's behind me. That total number, these are the breakdowns, $202,767 for those additional salaries for the 2 unions as well as all other municipal employees. And just so you're aware, that covers employees stretched across the breadth of the entire town. Administrative assistants, library employees, so you have libraries, council on aging, police department, fire department, things like that. We had $45,000 in unexpected employment costs that we had to add to the FY25 budget to cover those costs. Linda was able to work her way through with help from the finance team of the FY25 budget to make about $35,000 in reductions to try to lower the number that's needed for Article 1. And just so everyone is aware, $55,335 of that total number will be funded from opioid settlement money, so it does not come from free cash. If there are any questions on that, that is essentially Article 1.
Any questions? No one's moving to the microphone that I can see. All right, all those in favor of Article 1, please signify by raising your card. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed. Article 1 passes 134 to 1. Article 2. Motion. Move the town vote to increase the fiscal year 2025 enterprise fund budgets $169,639, and as funding, therefore, raise and appropriate and transfer from available funds as shown in Table B, Bravo 1, as presented at the November 14th, 2024 special town meeting and incorporated herein by reference. Do I have a second? Second. Motion and a second. Amy, would you, oh, Chief, okay.
Yeah. Amy's going to answer any questions when I screw this up. So, Article 2, very similar to Article 1, we are requesting funds be moved from 3 different enterprise budgets to again cover unforeseen costs as well as new positions and union wage increases. The total for the enterprise budget request is $169,639. $57,069 is for a new position plus union increases, and that is out of the sewer enterprise fund. $100,000 is out of expenses for the sewer enterprise, and that is to cover an unfortunate 16 or so % increase in sludge hauling costs that we have to deal with. And then your water enterprise fund and your Hadley Media enterprise fund for both union raises and for equipment. So you'll see behind me $64,000 total, $639 in salary increases, $100,000 for the expenses for the sludge, and then $5,000 for Hadley Media equipment. If there are any questions, that's Article 2.
Yeah, Edwin, hello. Edwin Matusco, 116 Stockbridge Street. I'm confused a little bit on the budget for aren't the enterprise funds supposed to be used just for that project? For the, like, sewer and the water and the stuff? And what's gonna happen if down the road we gonna find out that, oh, we're gonna have to borrow money to pay for these objects?
So all of your enterprise accounts all have a current balance. If you vote Article 2 through, you will be left with $816,766 in your water reserves, $27,771 in your sewer reserves, and $91,525 in your Hadley Media reserves. There will be no need to borrow money from any of that. And to answer your first question, Edwin, each one of those listings that I made, the money that is being allocated is specific to each one of those enterprise funds. They're not split between each other. Thank you, Kirk.
Any other questions on Article 2?
Greg Kwolek, 16 East Commons Drive. This is a yes or no question. Aren't enterprise funds established to be a self-sustaining entity whereby they control their own budgets and do not come back to the town for capital investments?
Amy, would you care to address that? Okay.
Okay, so yes, they are, but they can request capital items here and there.
So this is not an enterprise fund?
These are, what we're talking about right now is enterprise funds.
But it's, so if they come back to the town for money, it is not an enterprise fund?
And most of the time, when they do come back, such as what you'll see coming up in capital, they do come back, but we borrow, and we borrow against the enterprise. So the enterprise fund pays the borrowing, not the general fund.
So enterprise funds as defined are not self-fulfilling budgetary entities?
It's being paid for out of the enterprise fund. We're not commingling the enterprise.
So why is it coming up as an article by
Because
itself and not as an enterprise article to borrow against the enterprise fund?
Go ahead. Here you go.
So to answer your question, when an enterprise fund is established under the general laws, it's not a wholly separate entity. It can create and sustain its own revenue, and the town has also established, as I understand it, a portion of those revenues to be put into reserve accounts based from what activity they do generate. It is funding these articles out of those accounts, which were established to sustain the enterprise funds in the event that they had unanticipated capital costs.
But that is to sustain, as you said, sustain the enterprise fund. So these increases are not to sustain the enterprise fund, they are to subsidize the enterprise fund.
So that is more of a policy question than a legal question, and I will defer to the Finance Committee on that.
What's that? I don't have an answer for you right now on that.
Oh, so this is not truly an enterprise fund, this is a subcontracted fund.
There you go.
Yep.
They are self-sustaining.
Name and address, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm Linda Sanderson, 388 River Drive. I'm also the town. Is it on?
Yeah, it's on, but also your capacity for the town?
Yes, and I'm the town's treasurer. They are self-sustaining, but nonetheless, the town has to vote for them. So they're not self-sustaining in the fact that they make their money and they spend their money. All of that has to be approved at town meeting. These don't relate to any capital. This is increasing the budget that we voted at the May town meeting. So it's all funded. It's not coming out of free cash. The sewer expense is coming out of sewer. The water expense is coming out of water, and Hadley Media is coming out of Hadley Media. So it is a self-sustaining. They are all self-sustaining enterprise funds, and they have the funds to pay for these increases, but the town has to approve the increases.
So if they
Exactly.
cannot afford to pay for the increases, then why is the town, under the enterprise fund, responsible for paying for what they haven't budgeted for?
So, sir,
These are increases in the budget because we didn't have these expenses in the spring. In the spring, we voted for the full annual budget to be paid out of the enterprise funds, but these are amounts that between then and now have come as additional amounts that have to be addressed. They can address it within the funds. The rates were raised and have a sewer impact fund, but they can't spend it without coming to town meeting. And that's really all we're doing here, is affirming what was done in the spring with these additional increases, funded in the same way the annual budgets were in the spring.
the legal answer to the question, sir, is that although the entities are all enterprise funds, they are not independent. They are still subject to the control of the town, and that is why these changes need to come before the town for a vote.
Okay.
Any other questions on Article 2? Seeing none, we will move to a vote. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your card. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? 134 to 1. It passes. Article 3. Get some better light here. Move the town vote to transfer funds from various accounts as delineated in Article 3 of the special town meeting warrant of November 14th, 2024, incorporated by reference herein. Is there a second? All right, Article 3. Mike, you're up.
Okay, Article 3 is a housekeeping article. It's something that generally comes up each and every year. There's usually jobs and things that happen across town where we don't spend all the funds. This year, all of the funds will be getting transferred back to your water reserves accounts. So you have 3 different items there with a total of $63,361.55. So these are just pushing this money right back into the reserve accounts.
Kurt, one more time. 162. 162. 162.
I'm just getting an update number of people here. It is 162. Thank you all. Any other questions on Article 3? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? Unanimous, Jess. Article 4. Move the town appropriate $946,500 for expenses associated with capital projects as delineated in Article 4 of the special town meeting warrant, November 14th, 2024, and incorporated by reference herein, and to fund said appropriation by the treasurer borrowing with the approval of the select board up to $946,500 under and pursuant to Chapter 44, Sections 7, subsection 1 of the general laws or any other enabling authority, and to any other statutory authority, and to issue bonds and notes thereof. Do I have a second? Moved and seconded. Article 4.
Okay, Article 4 are your capital items. I know that's a little bit small. Everyone should have it in your warrant. The following departments are requesting either items or services out of capital: public safety, the library, DPW, and the school. The total, obviously the total funding source that Kirk just read is $946,500. For each one of the funding sources, there is $224,000 requested out of water reserves, $30,000 from sewer reserves, $460,000 to be borrowed within the levy, and $232,500 to be borrowed and repaid from water. Because of the fact that all these requests are coming from reserve accounts and or to be borrowed within the levy, none of these purchases will have any effect on your taxes. I just wanted to really quickly go over, this is probably the second or the third year that the town has utilized a full capital budget as opposed to voting on single items per department. I've seen this from both sides for the first time now, as a department head side and then on the kind of the town hall side. This is Linda's brainchild. I think it's a fantastic idea from both sides. I think it works well. I think it makes a lot of sense. I just want to give you all an idea really quickly about how kind of robust the process is and why we want to use a full capital budget as opposed to separate items. Every department head is required to come up with a 10-year capital request, capital plan essentially. And obviously every single year that capital plan changes. Sometimes things fall in front, are much more important, sometimes unforeseen things happen. But each and every year we're required to create one of those and update it. The first step in this process to request any type of capital item is to meet with the finance manager, who is Linda, and also the treasurer, as well as the town administrator. This year it happened to be me. And essentially what happens is we meet with the department head, we go over their request, we go over the full 10-year request, and we really kind of drill down to see whether or not what their request is for this year, whether it's necessary, whether or not it can be moved, whether it can be adjusted in any way, shape, or form. And so there's a lot of manipulation that happens within their capital requests just in that stage one. The next step in the process is that after those adjustments are made, the department head, the town administrator, and the treasurer then go before the capital committee. Some of the capital committee members are actually in the audience here. They do the exact same thing. They go through the full 10-year capital plan and they have the full request from every single department head across town of what is being asked for. So they take an even deeper look and really see if we can move and adjust things, see if things are really necessary. And department heads are required to argue for whatever it is that they're asking for. Once that happens, then the department head and all those folks go to the finance committee. Same exact thing happens. There are more adjustments made. There are more things that happen. There are more questions asked, and sometimes things are moved, sometimes things are dropped at that level. And then finally, the department head sometimes is asked to come before a by-board meeting, which is between the finance committee and the select board, where yet another round of these discussions occur. Now, I say all that to say that seeing this process from both sides, I'm very confident that each one of the department heads who have requested these items have made their case to all of those individuals to get these items on this budget. Meaning, what you see in front of you has been proven to most of the people that are making these decisions that they're necessary, they're not just wants, they're needs, and they are needed this year. Now, I say all that to say that doesn't mean that every single person who the department head has explained what they're requesting agrees. That doesn't mean that every single item up here is something that is voted for by every single one of the individuals I just went through. And you'll see that, which I've been to enough town meetings to know, that when someone sees that there's a no vote somewhere, everybody wants to know who it was and why'd you vote no. So with that, I open it up to the finance committee to discuss this. That way nobody has to ask that question. We'll get ahead of it.
Peter?
This one here. I make a motion to divide Article 4.1 as follows, to vote separately the multi-use excavator for $310,000 and then vote on the remaining article of 4.1.
You're offering that as an amendment,
Yep.
and there is a second. So we'll now move to conversation. Now, what Peter has asked is he's asked that we take the multi-use excavator as a vote by itself up front. And then after that vote, regardless of how that turns out, then we vote on everything else in the article with the multi-use excavator removed from it. So that's what we're looking at. And Peter, you were the no vote on the finance,
I
correct? Would you care to address that?
Here or up there?
There is good.
Okay.
Wherever you're
The
comfortable.
reason why I'm addressing this is we've got proposing for a $310,000 excavator, multi-use that has buckets, has a rod to breaking up concrete blacktop, and it has a mower. I was informed that the New Holland all-wheel drive tractor mower needs to be replaced due to its age of being 20 years old. It runs, it has a broken rim and a seal that in the process of being repaired, but this machine still runs. The New Holland weighs the tractor that we have right now weighs 14,000 pounds. It's got 6-foot agricultural tires and it's all-wheel drive. This new excavator, it weighs 28,000 pounds with road tires. This is going to be inevitable for this machine when it's going down throughout the fields and cleaning out all those ditches. 28,000 pounds is equal to 7 cars. Just think how big this thing is. It takes 2 to 2.5 months for doing the mowing, which is about 400 hours. At 5 years, that's 2,000 hours. These machines usually run for a life of about 12 to 15,000 hours. So you're using this machine to just mowing lawns. The renting of a machine of this is about $10,000 a month. So you're thinking in a year, that's going to cost about $25,000. For the life of that $25,000 of this machine being $310,000, that's 12 and a half years. That's the life of the machine of just mowing lawns. The town has a mini excavator for digging and doing the fire hydrant installs, which is done just fine. I know it was done in front of my house. In the past years, when there's been a water main break, the cost of the town, at the expense of the town outsourcing it, it costs around $2,000. If you have 7 water breaks at $2,000, that's $14,000 a year that we are subbing out for an excavator that someone goes about and takes it home and goes away with it. At $310,000, at $14,000 a year, at $22,000, at 22 years, at 7-year breaks, that's 154 water main breaks, which this town probably hasn't even seen for the cost of this machine. The town does have a backhoe. It doesn't spin like all the others and all the other favorite towns that they want to have, but we've used it in the past and it's functioned. We're not the town of Ludlow, Springfield, or Chicopee to be having an overglorified lawnmower for $310,000. That's why I voted no on this machine.
Any other questions or comments concerning the amendment? I'm sorry. It's a division. I need to get that on recording there, sorry. Any other questions on the division that we're doing right now?
Do we have to approve the division, or do we already?
You have to vote on it. Yes.
Do we have to approve that we're dividing?
Correct. We have to approve that we're dividing, and then we will vote on it and then come back to the main article. Yes.
The amendment after it's passed?
Pardon?
If we pass the amendment, do we then discuss the substance of it, or do we do that later?
It's, yeah, Michelle, could you come up and pull the mask down? Randy?
Shel Horowitz, 16 Barstow Lane. The Finance Committee member addressed the substance, and I'm wondering if we should be addressing the substance here or if that is waiting until after the amendment.
Well, it's a divide, and he was explaining why he voted no and put the divide up as a,
I just want to
As a
know if we're
motion.
going to be hearing from a proponent of,
Yes.
of the machine. Okay.
yes, we will.
That's all.
Okay. All right, we have to vote on the division first. All those in favor of dividing the article, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 142 to 20. The divide is approved. And Randy, you had a...
You're going to open it up to discussion. I just wanted to make sure that the DPW director got up here to explain why he feels we need that machine.
Scott, would you care to come up? Does Scott live in here? Before Scott can talk, I need to get a motion. Scott, stay right there. It's okay. This is quick. I'm going to make a motion that people from out of town that don't live in Hadley are allowed to speak when it is pertinent to the article we're discussing. Second. All right. All those in favor, raise your cards. Awesome. Those opposed? Passes unanimous. Scott, please.
Good evening, everyone. Scott McCarthy, Director of Public Works. In regards to the replacement of the tractor to an excavator. So the tractor's 18 years old. The parts are not available really for it anymore, especially with the mower apparatus. The tractor parts, the wheel and stuff, we could not get one. We did have one custom made, but it hasn't been proven yet. We had trouble mounting it to the machine. Adapter pieces had to be made for it, and we're not even sure if it's going to work yet. So with that being said, regardless, we'd be looking at replacing a guardrail mower. So a guardrail mower itself is $200,000. For $300,000, $310,000, we can get an excavator that we can mow, we can dig, we can do anything. We can use the machine 365 days a year, not just mowing the sides of the road. So I think it's very beneficial to the town to have that. And some of the information was not accurate. The weight of the blue boom tractor that I'm sure you folks have seen on the side of the road mowing is 22,200 pounds. The weight of the tractor is obviously less than the excavator, but the excavator, that's 30,000 pounds, the weight is evenly distributed upon all four wheels. The blue tractor, currently, all the weight is up front. So on the front axles, there's 8,700 pounds on each side and 2,600 pounds on the rear. So when we go off-road with it to mow the ditches, etc., the minute we hit something soft, the front end dives down and it's stuck immediately. The excavator should float a little bit better and over any kind of loose soil because the weight is more distributed. And it's got a big arm on it which can pull itself out of any, when it gets stuck. Currently, we'd have to pull it out or whatever if the tractor gets stuck. Also with the excavator, I don't know if any of you have been inconvenienced by water main breaks, but obviously when we shut the water off, our phone starts ringing and everyone wants to know when the water is going to be back on. And currently doing that with our equipment, we're slow. We can definitely become faster and more proficient doing it with this excavator. Sometimes I can get the Connexney's Hadley people to come out and help us. Sometimes he's not available. A lot of other contractors, we don't have a service contract with anyone, so if you call just random contractors, most of them won't come out. The Connexney's, if they're available, they help us. They're good people, they live here in town, but they're not always available. I feel we shouldn't really be relying on someone else. We should be able to do this ourselves. Today, we were working on Chamorro Road, replacing a fire hydrant in a branch. We had trouble getting our trench box in the ground to protect our employees from any kind of cave-in. With this machine, we could put our trench box in and out of the ground easily, protect our employees. There's some sections of town that really could use some infrastructure work. We can start doing that in-house. We don't have to sub everything out. We have very talented people working here. We just need some equipment to do the work. And and the blue tractor, like I said, it's 18 years old. There's not a lot of them out there. There's no parts, and the mower aspect of it is obsolete. It's just, they don't make it anymore. And we call for parts. Most things are special ordered, and we have to wait a considerable amount of time.
Any other questions or comments concerning the divide of the multi-use? Seeing none, all in favor of funding the multi-use excavator, please raise your cards. All those, thank you, you can put those down. All those opposed? Keep them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 148 to 14, the funding of the multi-use excavator passes. Now, we are back to 4.1 with all the other capital projects on there, excluding the multi-use excavator, because we just voted on it. Yes.
I'd just like to request that the moderator read the committee votes, as is traditionally. I don't know why we're not doing that tonight, but as Chief Mason said, it's kind of helpful to us. So.
He's absolutely right. I should be reading the committee votes. I just spaced out, and that's on me. I apologize. For Article 4, capital planning was 300. Select board recommendations were 400. The chair of the select board was out of country at the time and has indicated that she would have voted in favor to make it 500. Finance committee recommendation is 500, and the finance committee recommendation on the excavator was 4-1, but we just voted about that. So back to Article 4.1, all the capital projects minus the multi-use excavator. Are there any questions?
Edwin Mantusco, 116 Stockbridge Street. It says borrow within the levy. That doesn't mean our taxes are not going to go up. They are. They're going to be, what it means is that we aren't going to borrow, we're going to borrow the money within the levy, and we aren't going to have a vote on it, because it was over 2.5, Proposition 2.5. So when that is wrong, when we see borrow within the levy, our taxes are going to go up. They are. And I just want to point that out. Thank you.
Mike or Amy, either of you? Or... Oh, Linda, I'm sorry. I keep turning my back, Linda. I apologize.
I know I've always had a problem. People say it's no impact on taxes because everything we spend impacts taxes one way or the other. But what this means when we're borrowing within the levy is we're borrowing so that payments fit within the budget that we've already voted. You're correct that this is not a debt exclusion override, so we don't go to ballot and vote it for a few weeks, in a few weeks, at which time, if it passes, it would increase your taxes in order to pay for the debt on that borrowing. But as it turns out, within our budget, we have $500,000 a year within our voted budget, our operational budget, which is dedicated to paying the debt on items that we vote to borrow within the levy. It as our form of a capital plan, really, because we don't have a source of spend $500,000 a year to spend on capital. This keeps it even. Some years we will have $350,000 in that. Another year we might have $700,000. As you remember, it was only 2 years ago that we had quite a large budget for borrowing within the levy. However, the capital, the budget item is still 500,000. So that keeps your budget from going up and down to pay for that. This is a way of smoothing out. It is paid within the operational budget that you have already voted. It's supported by raise and appropriate, which we have already supported at the annual town meeting. So what we do when we vote items to borrow within the levy is we fill in those spaces. We fill in the items that are going to be covered by that budget item.
Sharon Parsons, 137 Mill Valley Road. Most of these items seem to be repair and replace. There are, however, an ambulance and computers and town hall HVAC that are not under that repair and replace. Am I correct?
Mike, did you want to address that? I don't want to put you on the spot.
So Sharon, yeah, I guess I would agree that the ambulance is new, the computers, I believe, are new. So, library or school?
If you can come to the microphone.
Oh, were you talking about the library?
Library.
Yes, I believe the library computers are new. As far as the HVAC, I don't think that's new. That's a replacement, isn't it? Is Gary here?
Okay.
It's a replacement.
All right.
That's a replacement.
My point is, I do not like having repair replacements on the same vote as new items. I think that's wrong, and I think it may force me to have to vote everything down because of that. Second ambulance. I have heard no reason why we need a second ambulance. A second ambulance also probably means another crew, which of course means more labor, which of course is more expense to the town as well. So I really believe that if it's not fixed, repair, or replace, then we need to have them as a separate line item.
Hi, Brian Carroll, 26 Breckenridge Road. So I'm going to kind of actually mirror her, is bunching this all together distracts from conversations about each item. I actually, looking at this, I agree with what's there, but I think it also diminishes the town hall people that want to address each issue on its own and have a conversation about it. So I think this is not a good way to go forward.
Greg Qualick, 16 East Commons Drive. Let me ask some questions.
Get it close to the microphone.
Oh, sure. Is there a public safety budget? Yes.
Not specific to public safety, there's police.
Okay,
fire.
but there are entities for budgets. Is there a school budget? Okay. Is there a DPW budget? Okay. Is there a library budget? Okay. I guess DPW water is an enterprise fund? And DPW highway, is that an enterprise fund? No, but they have a budget, correct. So my question is, why are capital items, articles, upgrades and a computer server, so on and so forth, why are not they incorporated into the budgets that you just said exist? Why are they coming out for capital expenditures, and then the budgets from the departments come here saying, oh, we need more money to run our department, but yet they are coming to the town and saying, oh, we need capital expenditures.
So the simplest answer, sir, is that none of the items on here would be considered operating budgets. Each one of the each one of those departmental budgets are for operating purposes to get you from July 1 of one year to June 30th of the next year.
So you're telling me that an IT upgrade in the school is not part of the capital, of the operating budgets? So if we don't vote for the IT upgrades, they can't operate? True or false?
Well, I guess you have to ask the school whether or not they can operate, whether or not they have it, but
This is the town meeting. This is where it all happens.
Yes, sir.
So it's too late to bring the town involved. Are you?
Excuse me, but can I just also answer? In Cardul Parmar 70 Chamura. So these items are, in the business world, this is just from running a business, there are operating expenses that you are doing as part of your operation. These items, just like what we would do in our tax return, would not be part of our profit and loss or operating budget. These would be capital things that we would put, such as equipment and upgrades and things like that. They are not part of the operation of the entity. And we don't budget. And as a business, you don't budget, you don't put that in your budget.
Yes, you do.
No, you do not. You put those as a capital, you put those as a capital expense.
It may be a capital expense, but without the capital expense, you cannot operate your business. Correct?
Again, how you account for those is separately. They're not the same, they're not the same account.
Different accounts, same business.
And exactly, this is a capital account, so that's why it's allocated towards capital.
So the question is, from my part, why do these individual departments continually come to town meeting begging and asking for new desks, new furniture, and things like that to operate their department when they already have a budget? Why don't they look at their own budgets and say, well, we may not need a bookcase, but we need new chairs, and put it within the budget of the of the department?
Because those are not things that you normally are operating on.
I guess
Your base, those are things, those are wearable things. If a chair breaks, that's not something you budget for.
You don't?
No.
In what business do you operate in?
So,
You obviously don't know my family.
yeah, so just to try to address this, these are actually basic concepts of accounting and business management, as Mr. Parmer's indicated. The life expectancy of many of these items spans multiple years, so the idea of an ambulance is not a one-time operating expense. And I would also just politely suggest that department heads aren't coming begging and screaming. They're actually engaged in pretty good strategic planning. And that's what you're seeing here tonight. So again, there's an awful lot of work that went into this. Multiple eyes have looked at these items. All departments have been taken into account. And I assure you that at another town meeting, you'll see a very different list, but the needs will continue. So that's why we have them outlined this way.
And at the end of the day, whether it's in somebody's budget or they're asking for capital, it all has to come before town meeting. It all gets paid from the town coffers. So whether you ask for it yesterday or today, it's all the same thing at the end of the day.
Alan Weinberg, 108 Bay Road.
Microphone.
Alan Weinberg, 108 Bay Road. I move the question.
We move the question. That requires an immediate cutoff of conversation and a vote. All those in favor of moving to question, please raise your cards. Okay, I'll put those down. All those opposed? The question is moved 161 to 1. We will move directly to a vote. All those in favor of Article 4, with the exception of the multi-use excavator previously voted on, please raise your cards. All right, put those down. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. 158 to 4, Article 4 passes. 4.1, excuse me, 4.1, yes. $4.2, Move the town amend Article 9A-2 of the May 5th, 2022 annual meeting, which authorized the town to borrow $310,000 to paint the Mount Holyoke water tanks by directing such funds for the purpose of designing and constructing 2 new water storage tanks to begin the project approved by the Article 18 of the May 2nd, 2024 annual meeting. Is there a second? Article 4.2. Oh, wait a minute, hang on. Select Board recommends 4-0-0. And again, the chair was on out of country, but would support that for a 5-0-0. And the Finance Committee recommends 5-0-0.
Okay. As the moderator just mentioned, this is a redirection of funds. I have heard articles like this be described as housekeeping. There is no need to allocate funding here, but essentially in 2022 at one of our town meetings, the town allocated $310,000 to paint Mount Holyoke and Mount Warner water tanks. And at this point, they would simply like to redirect those funds, not to paint, but to construct 2 new tanks.
Dan Dudkevitz, 130 Hockenham Road. If we voted to have these tanks painted in May of 2022, my question is, how come it's not done yet?
Draw the line on learning about water tanks.
But if we voted to expend money in 2022, how come the job's not done?
Scott, please. Your name and your title.
Scott McCarthy, Director of Public Works. So in 2022, we asked for funding to paint the water tanks. So this was with a previous director too. So as we started looking into the project, this is very involved. To the point it needs engineering to even paint it. So we had the tanks inspected and whatever, and they're somewhat met their life expectancies because they're steel tanks. So we decided painting wasn't really a good option for us. Replacement would probably be a better option for the town. So at the other town meeting, when we asked for funding to replace the tanks, we still had this painting money available. So the painting didn't happen just because it can't. Just the tanks are beyond paint. They need to be replaced. But I'm asking for the funds to be redirected because there is obviously engineering costs to get our grants in line, the process of going through this. So we just want to redirect the money that was previously given to us just to engineering and not painting. So they're not painted because they can't be painted.
Let me turn the microphone to you, Dan.
That's 2.5 years ago. You sat on $310,000 for 2.5 years. You didn't refund the money back to the general fund and we can do this all over again or just null this all out? I can't believe that you would expend $310,000, not pay the bill, and have it be sitting there for 2.5 years.
There was no bill to pay. We didn't do any work. We were just.
Brian Carroll, 26 Breckenridge Road. So it was a godsend that we didn't spend the money to paint the towers because it would have been a waste of money. We'd have really useless, unusable tanks that were painted and looked pretty versus moving this money to the new tanks that are going to serve our water needs in town.
Hi, Linda Sanderson, Town Treasurer. I want to clarify, there's no $310,000 that we sat on. It was authorization to borrow $310,000 to do the project. We didn't do the project, so there was no expenditure, so there's no reason to borrow. That's it.
Which is why we're here now, looking at a redirection, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions on 4.2? Seeing none, I'll move to a vote. All in favor of 4.2, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All opposed? 1, 2, 3. 159 to 3. Article 4.2 passes. Article 5, move the town appropriate $1,224.63 from the sources delineated in Article 5 of the special town meeting warrant for November 14th, 2024, and to transfer those funds as delineated and incorporated by reference herein. Is there a second?
Second.
Article 5.
I'll give Mike a break.
Pardon me?
So these bills came in after the closing of 2024. This is another housekeeping one, and it's just required by town meeting to authorize the payment after the fiscal year closes. So these 5 items total $1,224.63.
Select Board recommends 400, Finance Committee 500. Any other questions or comments?
Hi, Brian Carroll, Breckenridge Road. Could we just get a clarification of what these bills are for? I mean, there's names of companies here, but I don't know what we're approving.
Without having the invoices in front of me, there's no real way to tell exactly what they are. What I can tell you is that the 2 names there are employees of the town who are owed reimbursement for purchasing equipment for themselves. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but they were all approved appropriately by each department head. They just weren't submitted, or we didn't get them from the companies in time to pay them.
Any other questions or comments on Article 5? Seeing none, move to a vote. All in favor of Article 5, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All opposed? Jess, that's unanimous. Article 6, move the town extend the completion date for the CPA projects delineated in Article 6 of the special town meeting warrant for November 14th, 2024, and incorporated herein by reference. Is there a second? All right, we got a motion and a second. Article 6, Mary. There you are.
Mary Thayer, 179 Hockenham Road. We have a few CPA articles, so I'm going to do a quick summary of where the fund stands to begin with, just so people have a sense of the projects versus how much we have in the fund. Next slide, Jennifer. Thank you. This is what was collected for fiscal year 2024, which is July 1st, 23 through June 30th, 2024. The CPA surcharge from the town was $347,000, and that's from the 3% surcharge that's added to the real estate tax bills for residents and businesses. The state sent in a match of $175,606, which is actually a 53% match over what was collected by the town the year before. So last year, we got $522,938 and had earnings on that. So a total of $602,000 was added to the CPA fund available for projects. Next slide. Yep, there we go. So right now, we have a subtotal of what's available in our 3 categories: open space, historic, and housing. And then undesignated can be used for any of those funds. So there's $2,114,206 that's available for new projects. We also have reserved for expenditures $391,000, and we'll be repaying the bond that was authorized for the athletic fields of $750,000. So the total CPA fund is $3,255,559. And I just want to mention that There were a couple items that were reserved for expenditures that were turned back over to the undesignated fund or to the available funds. One is the owner of V1 Vodka, the St. John's Church building, decided not to use the award that was granted. It was changed, the warrant was changed at town meeting to, instead of a payback period of 5 years, if he were to sell it within 5 years, that was changed, that he'd have to pay the funds back if he sold it within 20 years. And that wasn't something he could work with. And one outcome is that the town will not be getting a historic preservation on the building. So that was $125,000. We also took back the funds that had been put towards Goodwin Memorial, about $226,000. That project hadn't been able to be done. The bills had gotten much more expensive. So that needs to be reworked. So the funds that had been allocated for the earlier project that had been extended a few times were put back into the available funds. Somebody had asked, well, how much have we had since this even started in 2004 for the CPA? So just a quick rundown. The town has contributed $4,818,000. The state has matched, it's actually about a 63% match, $3,048,000. So that's over $3 million we've gotten from the state to put towards CPA projects the town has approved. It's earned investments over the years, and we've spent already about $6,306,000 on many wonderful projects in town over the 20 years. So, some things that were completed just this year: the town hall pillars, the Historic Society's needlework samplers, and several are on display. They're just beautiful. The historical signs by the Historical Commission, the Lake Warner study, Hopkins Academy playing fields, and also the Hockenham fence. So the first article here has to do with the Hockenham fence. When the warrant was written, the fence was still needing to be finished, and they've done a lot in the last couple weeks, so it's pretty much done, except that there was another piece to the application, and that was to somehow use some of the original stones that were from the 1930 WPA project for the wall that used to be there. So there's still some funds left to maybe be able to do something with that. So we are asking for an extension, and we just put 2 years just to have, so that if it takes a little while, it isn't back before town meeting.
Any questions or comments concerning Article 6? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of Article 6, please raise your card. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? 161 to 1. Article 7. Move that the town transfer $79,300 from the Community Preservation Act Recreation and Open Space Reserve and $210,700 from the Community Preservation Act Undesignated Fund to the Hadley School Committee to install poured-in-place rubber surfacing at the preschool and kindergarten playgrounds at the Hadley Elementary School under the terms delineated in Article 7 of the special town meeting warrant for November 14th, 2024, and incorporated herein by reference. Is there a second? All right, motioned and seconded. And Mary. We're going to be seeing a lot of Mary. Yes, the recommendations. Are they up there? Select Board 400, Community Preservation 800, Finance Committee 500.
I'd like to ask Tara Brugger from the school committee to address this.
So, hi, I'm Tara Brugger, and
Address.
21 Norwottic Drive, and I'm a school committee member here in town. And I just did want to point out, it was just brought to my attention, that the article actually says poured-in-place surfacing at the preschool and kindergarten playgrounds, but it's actually the pre-K and kindergarten playgrounds are 1, and then grades 1 through 6 is another playground. So just to clarify, it would be on both playgrounds. And then, so the school committee put in a request to the CPA to provide funding for a portion of the playground project in the order of $290,000. And that's what we're guessing is going, well, that's the estimated cost for the poured-in-place rubber surfacing, and that would be the alternative to using the current wood chips that are in place. The total projected cost of the project, if including the poured-in-place rubber, is $616,000 approximately. So that covers, the CPA portion would be about 47% of the project. The rest of the project, if you haven't gone by the elementary school recently, has been funded in part by the school, as well as extensive donations from local nonprofits in town, as well as local businesses and community members. So we were able to raise over 50% of the total project just by community support. So that's huge right there. So in case you don't know what the poured-in-place rubber is, we don't have a picture of it. This is a picture of the pre-K and kindergarten playground. It did get installed a little over a month ago, and there's currently wood chips in place in it. So the poured-in-place rubber is a solid surface. It's a uniform surface that won't move as children run, play, slide, swing, whatever they may be doing. And the reason we want this is really three different reasons. One, accessibility. Wood chips are challenging. They move underneath you, and we are working within the restraints that we have for our playground, and we want to make it as accessible as possible for all kids to be able to play on the new wonderful playgrounds. Safety is the other one. There's nothing wrong with wood chips. They meet standards and recommendations that are put in. But as far as students go, if you haven't been around young students, and I'm often in the playground every single day after school, they pick them up, they eat them, they throw them at other children, usually at their face. So that, I took pictures and they didn't come out great. We have this beautiful spinner that's not pictured, and there's a giant rut going all the way around the spinner as children are running. So therefore, we no longer meet the safety requirements when it goes down almost a foot into the ground. Just within a day of use, and the same would qualify for the swings. And then affordability. We actually did an analysis of the alternative, which is wood chips, what we have in place now. And we estimated the cost of wood chips over the next 20 years at a very conservative inflation rate of 2.5%. And it would be about $284,000 or just over to use wood chips over the 20 years. And again, that's conservative with an inflation rate at 2.5%. It's been higher, so that number is probably going to actually cost us more to use wood chips than to put the poured-in-place rubber in place. And right now, those estimates are them lasting about 20 years. That's the poured-in-place rubber, if well-maintained. And our playground that was in place for well over 20 years. So our school and school staff take really good care of our playground, and I have no doubt that they would do the same with the rubber surfacing and that it would last. I wanted to quickly say thank you to the CPA. They did a very thorough analysis when we presented to them, and they addressed every avenue to make sure that when they made their recommendation for the project, that they were thorough and thoughtful in their responses. And so they did bring up certain safety concerns. If you've ever looked them up, this is poured-in-place rubber. So we did come back and address, and the poured-in-place rubber does meet all safety requirements as certified by the Consumer Product Safety Commission, as well as the American Society of Testing of Materials. So that's why we're here before you. We love our new playgrounds, and we're just trying to make it accessible, safe, and affordable for the school and for our students.
Tara, I need you to grab an amendment, the green piece of paper in the back, and straighten out and clarify. We'll vote on the amendment just to make sure things are crystal clear.
You got it.
We don't want the state coming back and yelling at us. So regarding this, Article 7, Select Board recommends 400, Community Preservation 800, Finance Committee 800. 500. I am going to wait for that amendment, though, so that we vote on the proper wording. Okay, all right.
Hi, Brian Carroll, Breckenridge Road. So my concern is how environmentally friendly is this? It's rubber. Rubber has leachates. It's over the aquifer. So I have a concern there. But in the end, when it's done and over with and it has to be removed and replaced, where does all this rubber go? Does it get chopped up, dug up, ground up? Is it recyclable? Does it be all sent to a landfill? So we're trying to look at environmental friendly practices for the town. This, to me, just doesn't seem like a very environmentally friendly way to go. Wood chips are natural, biodegradable. Yeah, kids throw them, and that's part of their fun, but as far as I'm concerned. But to me, it's just, to me, it's not the way to go, because it's just, I don't know, it's just, I prefer natural and biodegradable over some chemical process, rubberized surface, so.
We have an amendment to tidy up the wording of this. Move the town transfer $79,300 from the Community Preservation Act Recreation and Open Space Reserve and $210,700 from the Community Preservation Act undesignated to fund the Hadley School Committee to install poured-in-place rubber surfacing at the preschool/kindergarten and grade 1 through 6 playground and swings at the Hadley Elementary School. Under the terms delineated by Article 7 of the special town meeting warrant for November 14th, 2024, and incorporated by reference herein. Do I have a second for the amendment? Second. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your card. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? Unanimous, yes. All right, so we've got the clarification here. One that was against, I apologize. Okay, 161 to 1 was the vote. Sorry, Jess. All right, so now we are back to Article 7. Any additional questions or comments on Article 7?
Edwin Matusko, 116 Stockbridge Street. Are we going to have to hire a new person to take care of this project involved or not? And why wasn't this included in the budget for the schools?
So to answer your second question first, the school doesn't budget for a new playground. Again, that's something that I think Mr. Parmar had addressed. It's an operational budget that goes over 1 year. So we wouldn't anticipate the cost of that. And anybody who's not aware, the project moved a lot faster, because I did receive a question from the CPA actually. Why didn't you come to us for the playground and not just for the rubber surfacing? So that playground was installed around 1998, and probably a lot of your children were in the elementary school at the time. It's been there for a long time. And so we anticipated it taking much longer, but the grades 1 through 6 playground actually was falling apart. Caution tape, cardboard, anything that poor principal and staff could do to keep the kids off of sections that were no longer safe, where bolts were falling out and whatnot. So that's why the project has moved along as it has. As far as upkeep of the project, we do not have to hire anybody for the upkeep of the project. Inspecting it, any repairs that would be done would be well-known, hopefully in advance, as we monitor and keep track of the surfacing, just as we do the actual playground itself. So that wouldn't be an added expense, and actually it affordably would be arguably take up less resources. Right now with the wood chips, somebody needs to go out there and rake it every day so that it meets safety standards, because every day it just gets moved around. So this would eliminate that cost altogether. The surface wouldn't move.
Any other questions or comments on Article 7?
Brian Carroll, Breckenridge Road. So does that include other playgrounds in town? I live on Breckenridge, and there's a park right at the bottom of my hill, crossing Huntington, and that has bark mulch. Are we going to, does somebody write that every day? I don't understand. Is there a different
So I'm speaking just on behalf of the school. So when it comes to the school, kids are playing on that playground every single day.
Yeah, well,
There's hundreds.
they do at our park,
Yeah.
bottom of the hill.
So there's hundreds of kids playing every day on that playground. We've got over 300 kids in the school system, and they all have recess. So the use that, I can't speak to any other park in town, I can only speak to our schools and the use that they get used again by hundreds every single day at recess, as well as after school and on the weekends as well. And actually, we've had a lot more people coming in since they've gotten replaced.
I have a question for clarification, I think may address your question that I don't know the answer to. Zaterka. Who's in charge of keeping Zaterka looking good? Who redid it and maintains it and stuff?
The town does.
What, right?
The town does.
The town does?
Yeah, I see the town down there mowing and weed whacking and all that
so the
stuff.
town does that. And you're looking for school?
Correct.
Okay.
So the town doesn't maintain the school? They don't mow, they don't do the upkeep? So who does the mowing and all that stuff? I'm confused.
So for the maintenance, the school has a budget for the maintenance, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the town may do it, but the school has the budget for it?
Correct.
And so when you look at a park like Zaterka, that's only the town. The school's not involved in Zaterka?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, it's all town budget. I mean, the town's still paying for it.
Doug Thayer, 185 Hockenham Road. I was in first grade in 1998 at Hadley Elementary School, and I spent many years playing on the old playground. Now my kids do. I was kind of surprised to see it was still in the same condition as when I was in first grade, and I'm very thrilled with the improvements that were made to the park, the playground. I just want to point out this is not just a school resource. Through the summer, through evenings, weekends, there's many other community members that may not be part of the school that use it, and people from other towns that use it. So it's not just a school resource, it is during the school day, but evenings, weekends, summer, there's many people there all the time playing, and this would be a great improvement. There's 2 other parks nearby that have the port in place, and they're fantastic. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He is your friend.
Just talk to us like you would your friends.
My name is Darrow Fanninsteel, 127 Rocky Hill Road. I have used this playground. The wood chips, they do shift when you fall, run, whatever on them. And when you fall off of play structures occasionally, it hurts. Yeah. And I have personally used the rubber like surfaces, and they do not hurt at all when you use them. So definitely feels better.
Thank you for coming up, and I thank you for your courage in speaking in front of everyone. You did a great job. Thank you.
Andy Morris Friedman, 45 Roosevelt Street. Great to see a young person here at town meeting.
Yes.
For many kids, recess and the playground is the best part of school. Not for all of us. Some of us are still traumatized. But for many kids, it's the best part of school. You know, I don't want to be the one to have to tell the child in the wheelchair that they can't participate and play in the playground because we were too cheap to get a rubber surface that allowed them to participate. So please, vote yes.
Any other questions or comments concerning Article 7? A lot more conversation than I thought there was going to be, I'll tell you that. All those in favor of Article 7, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? 1. As you get the right count. 161 to 1. Article 7 passes. Article 8. Move the town transfer $2,000 from the Community Preservation Act Historical Reserve to the Historical Commission for the purpose of commissioning and conducting a preservation plan summary as set forth in Article 8 of the special town meeting warrant for November 14th, 2024, incorporated herein by reference. Article 8, Mary, there, hey, long time no see.
Mary Thayer, 179 Hockenham Road. This is from the Historical Commission, and we have Diana West, who's chair of the Historical Commission, who will address this.
Thank you, Mary. Diana West, 164 South Maple Street, chairperson of the Hadley Historical Commission. The Hadley Historical Commission is seeking to hire historical consultant Chris Skelly of Skelly Preservation Services to develop a preservation plan summary that will guide the community in safeguarding its rich heritage. This consultant will bring expertise in surveying and documenting historical resources, ensuring that all significant buildings, sites, and landscapes are accurately recorded. By working closely with the town's Historical Commission, the consultant will help set clear preservation goals and create strategies for public education and engagement. This plan will not only serve to protect the town's unique character, but will also help to foster a sense of pride and connection among residents. The Preservation Plan Summary will provide the Historical Commission with a straightforward and prompt analysis of our local preservation program, offering valuable insights at an affordable cost. The charge of the Hadley Historical Commission is historic preservation. We respectfully request funding to support this endeavor, which will provide long-lasting benefits to our town. Our analysis shows that this plan is cost-effective, community-focused solution to preserving Hadley's history. With your support, we can catalog our invaluable historical resources, set effective preservation goals, and successfully implement community outreach strategies. Thank you.
The Select Board recommends 400, Community Preservation 800, Finance Committee 500. Any additional questions or comments on Article 8? Seeing none, I'll move to a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? 1, 2. 160 to 2 for Article 8. Article 9, move the town transfer $29,550 from the Community Preservation Act Historic Reserve and $50,450 from the Community Preservation Act Undesignated Fund to the Select Board for the purpose of commissioning or performing a space needs analysis for Town Hall and Goodwin Memorial Library, as set forth in Article 9 of the special town meeting warrant for November 14th, 2024, and incorporated herein by reference. Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded. Article 9. Mary.
Mary Thayer, Chair of the CPA. I'm going to let the interim town minister talk about this one.
So I will apologize in advance. I don't know too much about this. This was an application which was started by your previous town administrator, Carolyn Brennan, requesting $80,000 for a space needs study. Essentially, the request for the study is specific, and it will allow the Select Board to evaluate the current and future uses of both the Town Hall as well as the Goodwin Memorial Library, and determine basically future uses for them and enable long-term planning for both of those buildings.
Mike, if I could just add one thing. The other thing to know is that some of you may recall that there were funds appropriated quite a while ago to look at the Goodwin Memorial Library. An awful lot has transpired since. The studies are really outdated at this point, not the least of which is we have additional town hall staff that weren't even contemplated in the older studies. So that's part of the reason to need to start afresh.
The Select Board recommends 400, Community Preservation recommends 800, Finance Committee recommends 500. Any questions or comments on Article 9? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of Article 9, please raise your card. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed, keep them up. 155 to 7, Article 9 passes. Article 10, move that the town appropriate the amounts set forth in Article 10 of the special town meeting warrant for November 14th, 2024, and to fund those appropriately by means identified in the same article, incorporated by reference herein. Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded. Article 10. David Phil, you're up. First time tonight. Might want to move the microphone.
So Article 10 is basically activating our overdraft protection for these accounts. They are negative accounts that have affected our free cash certification in the past. Some of them have been sitting in a negative status for years. This basically authorizes us to move money from the general fund or other parts of our budget into these accounts to zero them out or to bring them to the balances they should be, so they are not affecting our free cash certification.
Any other questions or comments on Article 10? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of Article 10, please raise your card. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? Article 10 passes unanimously. Article 11, move the town appropriate $10,000 to the Select Board and fund that appropriation from free cash account for the purpose of a form of government study as set.
We've got three motions here, Mr. Moderator. This is 11.1.
That's 11.1, okay. Right, we're going to address 11.1 to start off with. Form of government study. We're going to vote on each one separately. 11.1, motion the town appropriate $10,000 to the Select Board and fund appropriation from free cash for the purpose of a form of government study as set forth in Article 11 of the special town meeting warrant November 14th, 2024, incorporated by reference herein. Is there a second? All right, we've got that. And 11.1. Molly, I'll give it to you.
Thank you.
Molly will explain.
Okay. So a couple of points here. One, let me just explain what the form of government study is, and also probably more importantly, what it is not, because we've had a lot of questions on that, and then the reason that we're asking for the funding this evening separately. So the form of government study is a committee that the select board voted to form. It's comprised of 2 select board members and other citizen representatives to take a look at the form of government that the town of Hadley currently has. What that means is we just want to take a look to see if we are operating as efficiently and effectively as we possibly can, given how our staffing structure currently works. So you've probably heard it said before, Hadley has the most basic form of government under Mass General Law. There are several other municipalities that have adopted charters or they've changed the language just for clarification. That's not something that Hadley has ever codified before. So I just want to be clear that we are not looking to change open meeting. I'm sure we're all enjoying ourselves immensely this evening. So that's not on the table. And just based on the size of our town, quite frankly, we're limited under general law in what we could actually adopt. So it's very possible that as we move through the study, we're going to decide, or at least recommend to the select board and ultimately to town meeting, that we think that we're operating as efficiently and effectively as we can, given our board structures and committees and all of that. We may also make recommendations that we want to tweak it a little bit. Maybe we want to delegate a little bit more authority to the town administrator. Maybe we want to look at how some of the committees are functioning as either elected or appointed officials. So that's the work that's underway. It's likely going to continue at least for another year or so before it ever comes back to the select board. But rest assured, no changes will be made to our form of government without this body hearing what those recommendations are. So the reason for the $10,000 ask is that we thought that this had been included in the FY25 budget, and it was something that slipped through the cracks, and we are asking tonight for town meeting to put that money back in there. And that's for our work with the Collins Center, an independent third party who will shepherd us through this process.
And the Select Board recommends 4-0-0. Finance Committee recommends 4-0 with 1 abstention. Any other questions or comments concerning Article 11.1, Form of Government? Seeing none, move to a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? Keep them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 155 to 7. Article 11.2, move the town appropriate $12,000 to the Select Board and fund that appropriation from the free cash account for the purposes of a solar project study as set forth in Article 11 of the special town meeting warrant for November 14th, 2024, incorporated herein by reference. Is there a second? Second. Molly, you're up again.
All right, so I'm just going to walk through several talking points about this. Again, I think that there have been a lot of questions about what this solar project study is for. So this is something that came before the Select Board a while ago. This project is very specific to the landfill. The project is to really fund an application to Eversource. They charge a fair amount up front before you can even come to the table. And roughly half of the funds being requested this evening would go to Eversource as their application fee, and the other half basically to come up with an actual plan. So the solar project is, again, a feasibility study to see if we were to put solar at the area of our landfill, if in fact that's would pass muster with various committees that would need to approve it. It would need to go through conservation, get a ruling from them. But we can't really move forward with even looking at this until we have the application in with Eversource, who has to provide a significant amount of data for this. The long-term goal is really to generate revenue for the town of Hadley. So what we're hoping is that you'll look at this as an investment this evening. This $12,000 will be, again, doing a feasibility study to see if preliminary estimates of ongoing revenue generation from solar siting can in fact occur. And ultimately, if we can do this, this revenue generation will be, effectively in perpetuity or until technology changes dramatically down the road. So why the landfill? A lot of people have asked, why should we spend money on this and have it specific to the landfill? Number one, there are state incentives, specifically incenting municipalities to do something with their landfills and solar. So there's a fair amount of grant money on the table that could help defray the cost if this were to move forward. There's also an economies of scale issue. A lot of people have asked about roofs, the parking lot between the library and senior center. The reality is that the amount of land available at the landfill is pretty significant. So it doesn't mean that we don't want to do solar elsewhere. It's just kind of a one-stop shopping. And then I think the last thing is we want to, again, do the study to see if preliminary estimates, we're only assuming roughly half of the landfill siting could be used for solar. But once it goes through conservation, it's possible that we'll find out that there's even more land available for this. And if that's the case, there are going to be some pretty significant numbers. So original estimates are looking at the possibility of generating at least $80,000 a year. So again, we hope that that's conservative and a good investment for us to spend this money tonight to see if it can be done.
Thank you. The committee recommendations. Select Board recommends 400. Finance Committee recommends 140. Amy, as chairman, I'm going to turn it over to you for the 1-4 discussion.
Okay, so I just wanted to tell you what we were thinking when we voted, not everyone in finance, but the ones that did vote against it. It started with free cash. We're very worried about where the free cash is going. The free cash is certified in the fall. This year will be the first year different from the last 2 years. This year is different from the last two because we are using the free cash that we just certified for next year. So we're dipping into it now. So that has some concern for me because last year we needed $800,000 to balance our budget. We have a shortfall every year. We really focus on trying to bring that down, but we needed $800,000 to balance the budget. And because we're dipping into it now, we are only going to have $650,000 going into next year's budget. So now that brings some concern to me. So the only ones that I was able to really, when we were looking at these, that we didn't really have a choice when it did union negotiations. We have to get that done, okay? So that had to be done. Past due bills, we have to get that done. We've already spent the money. Same with the overdrafts, like David said, we had already spent the money, we have to pay it. And I would have voted no on the form of government, but we already signed the contract, they already started the work. So once again, have to pay it. This is something that is an optional one. Do I think that solar is a good idea? Yeah, I do, and I think that we could probably look at it, it could save us some money. I do have some questions about it. We do not have any extra money to spend freely. Things are tight. So the $12,000, I'm worried that we are jumping the gun on it. I asked a lot of questions. I looked at Amherst, they did theirs, and there's just a lot of questions. So after looking at Amherst, I looked, they had the DEP, Mass DEP, they talked about the process. It says start here under DEP. My question is, normally if I'm building a house, I'm not going, and I'm not going to build a house, make a design, and do all that if I haven't done a perk test yet. So I'm just worried about spending the money and being another study or another piece of paper on the wall, and we haven't done all our ducks in a row. I'm for solar, so I don't want to say that I'm not for this project or not for solar. I'm just not for it at this time. I'd rather see all of the other questions answered first. Thanks.
Anyone else that voted no? Care to? I mean, Paul, you switched your vote, didn't you?
Well, you can't switch your vote.
But
But
you would
if we were
change it.
doing it again, I would switch my vote. After learning a little bit more about the project, we did not have a formal presentation about the project. I was contacted by Michael Doctor about it, and I read some of the documents that he had. This is essentially the money for the study, but part of it is the permit or the ticket to get into the theater in the first place with the electric company. And unfortunately, if we don't pay them for that, we're not in line. So they sort of have us over a barrel in that regard. It really is unfair that we can't just say we're going to do a study and they'll hold a place for us. We have to give them the money, okay? And then we're going to do the study. Then we're going to have whoever's in charge of this is going to have to go to all the committees, and somebody should shepherd this. In reality, I would think there would be a committee or a group of people who would volunteer, or through the planning board or somebody who would shepherd this through, possibly with Michael Doctor, but possibly with a whole nother crew of people, and possibly a consultant. So we will have to spend more money for an engineering study. That's going to be down the road, but this is the beginning of the study. And yes, we are tight for cash right now, but I don't think $12,000 at this point is going to make a big difference now or in the fall. We're that tight. I don't think I think it'd be foolish to pass this up right now. Okay. And I'm sorry I voted the other way. I just didn't know enough about it at the time.
Thank you, Andy Klepacki, Finance Committee. At the time the presentation was made, where we really didn't have a lot of information, and Amy and Paula certainly have brought up a lot of the main concerns when we first heard this. It was, a concept. We don't know, how much we were going to. We have a rough idea of the revenue based on sales numbers that were presented. We don't have a great understanding of the cost of the equipment itself, or bringing three-phase power all the way out to the landfill from Route 9, and how that would, how we would route that. Whether there was a committee that was going to have oversight on this. There's just a lot of questions. And to Amy's earlier point, when we take $12,000 out of free cash now, it doesn't sound like a lot, but next spring when we're taking $12,000 out of some department's budget, it's going to hurt. So at the time, that's why we voted against it, or at least that's why I voted against it.
Peter Matusco, 19 Middle Street. I also agreed.
A little closer, Peter.
Sorry about that. I also agreed with them when it came to the little bit of an uncertainty, and knowing that if things were this tight this year, where is the other money going to be coming from, of whether if it's going to be Park and Rec or out of these other departments. Believe in solar. I own it myself. But for the town to start generating money, I am more for the part of leasing it, the land, instead of actually owning it and trying to create a revenue from it. It'd be one of those things as to the maintenance disposal. I'm not opposed of it, but when it comes to if things are tight now, it's going to get worse later. And that's why I also voted no.
Okay. Michael Doctor, 113 Bay Road, and a member of the Hadley Climate Committee from which this... Michael Doctor, 113 Bay Road, and a member of the Hadley Climate Committee from which this originated. It actually originated with David Phil many years ago, who suggested that the town do it. And we've been following up on it. There is a great deal of information available already. I'm sorry, I did try to make it to the Finance Committee to do a presentation, but wasn't able to do that. There is a very hard number on moving three-phase power from Route 9 to the landfill. It's about $600,000 per mile. The distance is just under a mile. That is covered in the financial projections that were done and still show a very positive cash flow afterwards. Again, this is as far as leasing the project. The town could at any point decide that they don't want to own it, they can lease it. There is a lot of leasing of solar that goes on. What tends to happen is that the person who developed it owns it, and then the town would lease the land to them, and we would get inexpensive electricity, electricity at a fixed rate for the life of 20 years or 25 years or whatever. What we're talking about here is getting energy at a fixed rate and a significant return on our investment. Owning something in this country means something. And in the past, towns could not take ownership of projects like this and take advantage of federal tax incentives, which are roughly 30% of the project. Since the Inflation Reduction Act was passed, towns may now take advantage of those rebates, and so it makes a lot of sense financially for the town to do this. But if you want to lease it to somebody, that's fine too. The town could make that decision at any point. This is just to get the application started, the ball rolling, and so we can make a determination of what makes the most sense.
Hi, Kurt, can I just say something?
Oh.
Hi.
I'm hearing voices. Yes, please.
So I did just want to, so I do support solar, I love solar, I think it's great, but I also want to be honest that while we would get potentially some grants for this, we also have to think about that we do have the DPW building coming up soon as well, and we would be responsible for the cost of the installation, and it was over 2 million. I know it does generate revenue, but I also just want to make sure everyone's thinking about big picture at the same time. That's just wanted to be honest that yes, we would be spending money to do this study, but then we would also be required to pay for the installation of it in the future, it was over 2 million, I think. That's all.
Shell Horowitz, 16 Barstow Lane. I have written 4 books making a business case for using green energy, among other things, and I run a company called Going Beyond Sustainability, so I have not the technical expertise about the specifics of this project that Michael Doctor has, but I have some pretty good general understanding of it. Number one, landfills are a great place to put solar, closed landfills, because you're not taking forest, you're not taking farmland, and you don't have some of the logistical difficulties of rooftop solar. That's one thing. Number two, the Inflation Reduction Act was mentioned by a previous speaker. I would remind everyone that the grants that are in place now will not necessarily last long, considering the change of administrations in Washington to a very alternative energy hostile administration. So let's grab it while we can. Number three, Scott made a very compelling case for why we should buy a $300-something thousand excavator, and almost everybody in the room supported that. So I'm a little surprised that people are balking at the tiny fraction of that is $12,000 in a project that brings in revenue. I think we have a very strong case to make that we should do this and do it now.
David, are you speaking as a selectman or as yourself?
Nope, just as me. So David Phil, 39 Knightley Road. I appreciate the Finance Committee's vote because normally I probably would have been a no vote on something that might be considered an extra or something that when budgets are tight and free cash is tight. But because of the incentives that are available and the long-term return on our investment that's a possibility here, this very well could be something that could help solve some of those financial difficulties in the long run, because the very conservative early projections, very conservative, based on the available acreage that's there and the solar we could put on, says, and correct me, Michael, if I'm wrong, but somewhere in the range of $80,000 a year after all of our debt service and expenses are covered. So that's why, in my mind, this is a good return on our investment and good for the town.
Tony Fiden, Cold Spring Lane.
I think the issue here is the process, not whether we're for it. I mean, most people are, it's a landfill, there's not much that can go there. Solar would probably be a good idea. We're talking about the process here, which has been very odd. But most towns, when they do this, they form a task force. They look at all these issues, renting, leasing. And the state actually has a guideline. How do you go about this? How do towns go about this? And the state says, the DEP says, the first thing you do is find out if it can even be done there. Bring your Conservation Commission in. You don't need a plan to bring the Conservation Commission to find out if there are wetlands. Bring the Planning Board in to see if there are zoning issues. That's on getting started. And what we've done is kind of get a little ahead of ourselves. We've had one guy go out, talk to a salesman, and we're spending money on this. And I think we're going to, if you care about the project, you want it done right. I do think it's a good idea, but I'm not into wasting money, because that money, that $12,000, is going to have to come out of some budget. So the point is, let's form a task force. Let's decide this. There's absolutely no reason we have to rush into this. My dad told me if somebody tries to rush you into spending money, keep your hands in your pocket. That's good advice, because the grants are going to change. We don't know what's going to be available down the road. So the process is completely flawed. Let's start with a task force, not one person. The immediate issue I have with this, and it's a serious one, is that Molly Keegan, several times, and she did this in the previous presentation, the public forum, she has called this a feasibility study. It's on here as a study, and it's been called a study throughout. A feasibility study is a thing, as our town council will tell you. It's a specific document which we're going to get A, B, and C. We're going to get information from that. I read through the documents. I don't see where there's a study. There's money for the application, and then there's money for an engineering and design. An engineering and design is not a study. We're being asked to vote on something that doesn't exist. A study might be a good idea, but unless you can show me exactly what's being studied, a feasibility study, where is it? Where's the agreement? Because I'm looking at it and it says our fee would be for a schematic design. That's engineering. They're going to design, just like when they came to my house, the solar people, and they gave us an engineering plan. They said, here it is, take it or leave it. And another company would, do the same thing. We're getting a design here. We're not getting a study. So I don't know. I personally think if there's no study, unless you can correct me, if you could show me where there's a feasibility study, then there's no vote. This is void. Is there a feasibility study? Do the moderator, do the select board?
I would turn that back to the select board.
Yeah, I think, and Michael, if you want to speak to this, but Tony, I understand what you're saying in terms of the language being used, maybe proof of concept, but the bottom line is we can't put anything in front of conservation because there is this ordering that has to happen. So
that's not what the DEP says. The DEP says you go to the conservation first.
We need to bring something to the Conservation Commission.
No, that's not correct. I'm sorry. That's what the DEP says. You find out if there, and I could read it to you very quickly. Getting started, the first thing it says, determine if any existing permits or limitations preclude, prevent, or limit post-closure activity at the landfill. So and it details, you go to the planning board, you find out zoning issues, you find out conservation issues.
Sure. If I could, Michael, you went to conservation and had.
Michael Doctor, 113 Bay Road. The purpose of these funds is twofold. One is to pay an engineering firm to draw out a proposal for what the installation would look like. And the other is a application to Eversource so that Eversource can do a feasibility study to determine what grid improvements are required in order to do an installation of this size. So that's, I don't know if that explains it or not, but so the study is what gets done by Eversource in this process. The Climate Committee has been pursuing this. We would love to have a task force to help us go the next step. This is the initial step that we need to take. It would be great to have a task force, and it would be great to be able to go before the Conservation Commission as soon as possible so they can define the parameters of what this is. But this is just a first step, so.
Does that answer the question, Scott?
I just want to state that that's not correct. The grid study is completely separate. That's in the emails from Michael Doctor, the email change. The grid study is different. This is not the grid study, and Eversource is not going to do a study. Is there a study? No. What are we voting on? It says study, and there is none.
Okay.
Jane Nevin Smith, 16 Sunrise Drive.
Jane, are you speaking as a select person or as a town member?
I will speak as a resident.
Okay.
Part of the funds of this $12,000, I think it's like $5,000 of it, is for an application to Eversource. If Eversource says no, it's all over. If Eversource says yes, and in order for them to be able to say yes, we need to have this drawing to present to them. So going ahead with all the other parts, and we have already spoken with Conservation, that's why only 50% of the land at the landfill is being discussed as possible. If we go beyond approval by Eversource, then we go much deeper. The other thing is, Eversource is not going to accept lots and lots of these proposals. It's first come, first serve. And that's the reason we're asking for this study now, because it may be a great idea and we may be too late.
Dan Ditkevitz, 130 Hockenham Road. I just want to make sure I heard this right. Ms. Fiden, you said the form of government study went through? That the bill's already been incurred?
The form of government has already been, they started working at it already. They had made,
All right.
It was omitted from the last town meeting. The previous town administrator had already talked to someone. They already started the committee. It was already a done thing.
Thank you.
Sorry. Yep.
Andy Morris Friedman, 45 Roosevelt Street. You got to spend money to make money. And it sounds like opponents to this study are saying that we can save $12,000 and give up $80,000 a year once this project is completed. That doesn't seem to make good economic sense to me. So if you want to help the town's coffers, you should vote yes for the study. It doesn't mean we have to build it. It's just the first step.
Rick Thayer, 179 Hockenham Road. I'd like to call the question, please.
Okay, motion to call the question stops all conversation. We move immediately to a vote. All those in favor of calling the question, please raise your cards. Oh! Okay, you can put those down. All those opposed? 161 to 1. All right, we're going to move directly to a vote. All those in favor of Article 11.2, this is a majority vote. Please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. Did I say those in favor or those opposed? Those in favor? Okay, those opposed. Article 11.2 passes.
Number?
142 to 20. 142 to 20. That was a quick estimate. I know there was a hot article and some people are leaving right now, but I have a public service announcement that was handed to me. Hadley Mothers Club is doing a holiday fair Saturday, November 23rd, right here from 9 to 3. 40 vendors, raffle items, Santa will be here, and hourly door prizes. So the 23rd of November, Please plan on coming and supporting Hadley's Mother Club. Thank you for the PSA. What time? From 9 to 3. Yep, 9 to 3. And Santa will be here from 1:30 to 2:30. Ho, ho, ho. Forgive me, it's early, I know. All right, Article 11.3. Move the town appropriate $15,000 to the Select Board and fund that appropriation from free cash account for the purpose of retaining a search firm for hiring a new town administrator as set forth in Article 11 of the special town meeting warrant for November 14th, 2024, referenced herein. Is there a second? Second. All right, Molly, you're up.
As everybody's well aware, our previous town administrator left beginning of September. We have a very competent interim acting town administrator. Thank you, Chief. But we do need to, again, move the town forward. So the Select Board has decided to move forward with a search firm. If you are gracious enough to fund that this evening. So we have already spoken with a few search firms. We would like to get started as quickly as possible, and that is contingent upon the funding being approved this evening.
Any questions or comments on Article 11.3?
Did you want me to explain why we voted against?
I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you, Amy. Select Board recommends 4-0-0. Finance Committee recommends 2-3-0. And Amy, as Chair, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, once again, we did have a split vote on this, and a lot of it had to do with the money was tight. The question was, you know, we've known about this since August. Can we not try? MMA is Massachusetts Municipal Association. We belong to that. That's where a lot of the town administrators talk. There's places to post for that. I said, can't we please at least try to post or ask for that position? And that would not cost the town any money. So David Nixon never went through a committee. He was found without. Robin before that was also found without. So we have found our town administrators without. We have an excellent intern without. So I was looking to see if we could save the money and then just at least ask. I mean, if we had tried and we didn't get anywhere, that's one thing, but we haven't tried. Thank you.
Molly, please.
Yeah, just to address the concerns raised by Amy, I think in our discussions at the Select Board level, that was discussed, whether we could avoid going through a search firm. The climate right now for town administrators, there are actually a handful of positions open, and the benefit of going through a search firm rather than strictly relying on, postings with the Mass Municipal Association, the local newspaper, Indeed.com, is that there is somewhat of a finite pool of qualified individuals out there. These search firms do this all the time, and as a result of that, they get to know the 351 municipalities in the Commonwealth pretty darn well. They know what talent is out there, and they're actually able to reach out proactively and say, hey, there's a job opening in Hadley, fantastic place to work. Wouldn't it be a great opportunity for you? Do you want to throw your hat in the ring? Not everybody is glued to these types of postings, so that was the reason we decided that the $15,000 would be money well spent. And again, we're very grateful for our acting town administrator, but I can assure you, he has indicated he would very happily go back to his regular day job if we will let him. So we would hate to push this off, not find anybody, and then now we're behind the 8 ball and we're starting this process in the spring.
Andy Morris, Friedman, 45 Roosevelt Street. So we can save $15,000 if the chief keeps doing both jobs. I mean, he's not looking too bad for a guy who's doing, well, chief and town administrator, that's really 4 jobs.
You're getting a speeding ticket.
Just an idea.
Tony Fiden, Cold Spring. I just want to my issue with this, I'm a hard pass on this, because about 4 or 5 years ago, the select board and the town voted to hire a full-time human resources director, and that was something that we were told that we really needed to do, and we've spent, since then, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on having a full-time human services director, and they're fully capable of doing this job and to put advertising out to the trades and get this out. It seems like it's counterintuitive that we would have spent that money to have someone in place, and I know that we have a new person in place, and there was an argument that they're too new, which doesn't make any sense to me. We have a person in place who is capable of doing the job. We don't, and I'd also point out that we have in-house candidates who I don't believe this went out to our in-house candidates sufficiently. We have in-house candidates that I know are capable of doing the job, because the last person that you hired with the help of a consultant was not capable of making budgets, so we had to pay people to make budgets, and they've been doing that. They did a lot of the heavy lifting, so it's a kind of a standard process. You look in-house who can do it, and then you advertise. We have a human resources director who should be allowed to do their job and not spend extra money.
Any other questions or comments on 11.3?
I'd like to make a comment, please.
It's okay.
Oh, okay.
The reason why I said no is also agreed to the previous speaker, was that we have paid somebody that works for the town that is in part of human resources. They've specialized in this, they went to school for this, they were hired for this. Why are we subbing it out for somebody else to be looking through some sort of other business? I know that there's going to be a probationary period, and if we're spending $15,000 or $12,000, and if the person isn't applicable or doesn't work within that probationary period, is there another $15,000 after they go? Is this a one-shot deal? What happens
No.
if the person doesn't fit in? That's right.
Oh, I was going to say that the $15,000 also is like an insurance policy as well on the person that we hire. So if within the first year, the person that we hired decides to leave, they will go through the entire process again at no cost to us.
Well, once again, I think if we've hired somebody, we're paying them, they have their health insurance through us, they have their time off through us. Why can't they do their job and do the vetting for us?
Hi, Brian Carroll, Breckenridge Road. To me, it just seems like the first step would be just try to go advertising and put it in Boston paper, Connecticut paper, local papers, and see what candidates you get out of that. And then if you don't get qualified candidates, then go the extra expense of spending $15,000. I mean, advertising in a paper seems like a reasonable way to go.
Any other Jane, are you coming up? Okay. Select Board or Jane Nevin Smith, citizen?
Jane Nevin Smith, citizen,
Okay.
16 Sunrise Drive. I love Mike Mason. So far, he still loves us. However, if we try to do this ourselves and we do not succeed, it means we have to wait until spring town meeting to ask for money for this study. Therefore, I encourage you to vote for it now.
Any other questions or comments concerning 11.3? Seeing none, move to a vote. This is a majority vote. All in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. All those opposed? Keep those up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. Okay, you can put those down. $127 to $35, Article 11.3 passes. Article 12, motion to move, the town move to transfer $60,000 from free cash account to the town's employee compensation time fund. Is there a second? Second. We have a second.
All right, I'm going to
And this
speak
is
to that.
Jane.
I'm here.
Okay.
So this is to fund outstanding compensation time for retiring employees. We have 4 employees who are retiring, and they've been with us for a very long time, and we need to be able to give them what is theirs, and the money is not in the fund, so we're moving money to the fund so we can pay them.
Not on this article.
Not in that article? Any questions or comments concerning Article 12? Seeing none, I'll move to a vote. All in favor of Article 12, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? Article 12 passes unanimously. Article 13.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
In light of current information, I move to reconsider Article 11.1.
11.1. All right, okay. We've never had a reconsideration in Hadley before, so that's like a new thing. I wanted to clear everything to town council to make sure that we did it right. We have, okay. Maybe when I wasn't here, I took some time off. Okay. So there's a motion for reconsideration for Article 11.1. Is there a second? The amendments have to be in writing. Correct. Motions for reconsideration do not.
Mr. Moderator.
Okay. We can get it in writing. You are correct, but we can get it in writing. But there's a motion. Is there a second?
Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
Please. The way I understand it, if there's a reconsideration, there has to be information that has been gleaned since we voted, and I hear no reason for this.
You want the information?
Yes, please.
After the vote was passed on 2 instances, I have heard from the panels up here that this committee was already formed, already authorized, and already given instructions to proceed. That is a violation of this article, which is brought forth today at town meeting. So that article voted on tonight moves forward. It does not go retroactively.
I'm going to turn to legal counsel on that one.
You cannot pass an article to do things in the past. That's why we have articles to deal with overdue bills, to go back and pay those. But in this case, it does not follow to authorize something that has already been started and authorized. Pick one.
So the question being posed, as I understand it, is whether the article can authorize payment. Typically, all municipal spending is subject to appropriation, and so to whatever extent there was some preliminary negotiation or even a commitment, it remains subject to a vote of town meeting, and it cannot be paid until town meeting authorizes.
But town meeting does not know if this government study was authorized, the budget was authorized to spend any money, was authorized to do anything until it was approved to give them a budget of $10,000 to do something. So
To the extent the gentleman raises policy questions, I defer to the board, to the finance committee. Legally, the original action was subject to appropriation, and the town has voted to make that appropriation.
hence the reconsideration.
I don't know where to address that to at this point.
You can call for further discussion, or you can simply call for the vote on reconsideration. Ask for if there's any more debate. Because it's not a bill that's being paid. My understanding is that there's not been a bill that was submitted outside the fiscal year. It's a question of, they had discussions about whether they wanted to hire a consultant, and they said, okay, we think we're going to do.
All right, this is what we're going to do to just kind of just get procedurally moved through this. We have a motion for reconsideration. It needs a second. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. All right, now we vote on it? Yeah, okay. Now we're going to vote on the motion for reconsideration. If you're in favor of reconsidering Article 11.1, please raise your cards. If you are opposed, now we got the vote, Andy. If you're opposed, please raise your card. Okay, the motion for reconsideration fails.
No, I mean, you can make a note of it if you want, but it was not in fact reconsidered. So
Article 13, move the town appropriate $350,000 to the ambulance services budget and to fund that appropriation from the town stabilization fund. Is there a second?
Second.
Select Board approves 400. Finance Committee approves 500. Select Board approves 400. Finance Committee approves 500.
You want this one?
Hello, am I back? I'm back, okay. All right. Any questions or comments concerning Article 13?
Edwin, I don't know how to. Maybe. Yeah.
Hey. Give me some.
Edwin Matusko, 116 Stockbridge Street. Am I on?
Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, we can hear him on that one.
That one's good, okay.
Oh boy, I forgot what I was supposed to ask.
Edwin Tusko, 116 Stockbridge. It was for the ambulance.
Right, I see that. Oops.
This one's down too.
Light is on. Edwin Matusko, 116 Stockbridge. I can.
Louder.
Edwin Matusko, 116 Stockbridge. Yep. I thought we were supposed to not get another ambulance because we were supposed to. Make use of the other one.
This is stabilization.
Molly, did you want to address that?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Well, let me.
The question, I'm sorry, just want to get the question out that Edwin asked because the microphones are screwing up. Edwin, you were asking that you didn't think we were going to be getting another ambulance. Right. Correct, okay.
That wasn't the question.
Are we getting another ambulance?
That's the stabilization.
That was his question. Are we purchasing another ambulance?
No. Yeah.
We already did that.
Right. So that's not this article. Is this mic working now?
Okay. All right, so Edwin, that was already addressed in Article 4? Okay, can you guys hear me in the back now? Okay.
Is this one working?
I might have to get right on top of it. No,
No, not working.
really close.
Okay. I mean,
gotta
I'm
be
happy
touching
to
it.
just yell. All right?
Just yell.
Okay. All right, so, so just to give you the nature of this article, so we are asking the town to transfer $350,000 from stabilization to fund the coverage of the cost of running the ambulance service right now. This is to get us through the end of the year. If you recall, previously we had a warrant article asking you for seed money so that we could start moving towards building out an ambulance service. Currently, we use Action Ambulance. It's been a very successful program. But that said, eventually it's been the goal that we would take on more of that call volume because, again, with revenue being it's a way for us to try to build up a revenue stream. These things take time. So we appropriated the money last year so that the fire department could do the, sounds like it's coming back on. The fire department could do some hiring to get the coverage going. So we have those individuals in place. The next step was we needed to get the BLS ambulance up and running. There's a whole licensing process that has to go through. That successfully has gone through. We are now starting to pick up ancillary, I'll call it, calls. So Action doesn't respond, then the BLS service is now responding. That is starting to bring in revenue. But over time, the goal is to kind of go like this. We want to do our own ALS so that we're picking up the call volume, picking up more of the revenue, and then Action would basically be stepping back, with Hadley being primary and Action being backup. So this is a plan, it's a multi-year strategy that the fire chief is working out, and so this is just another step in that process. So the goal here, by using stabilization, is that we're effectively borrowing from ourselves. So the cash is sitting there in stabilization. As the receipts revenue builds up over time, what we'd like to do is then have that revenue come back and put the money back into stabilization. And this is something that town meeting has approved in the past. So that's where we're at. I know the fire chief is available for questions if anybody has any as well.
Thank you. Any other additional comments or questions concerning Article 13? Seeing none, move to a vote. All those in favor of Article 13, first, Select Board recommends 400, Finance Committee recommends 500. This is a 2/3 majority required. If you're in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? 161 to 1, Article 13 passes. Article 14, move that the town hereby accepts the provisions of the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 54B. Jane.
Second.
Second, thank you. Jane.
By adopting these provisions, it will give our town treasurer greater flexibility in diversifying how we invest our trust fund accounts. This is relatively new. We haven't had this option before. We want to give the treasurer permission to do as she has always done, best by our investments.
Any questions or comments concerning Article 14? Seeing none, move to a vote. All in favor of Article 14, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? Article 14 passes unanimously. Article 15, move that the town authorizes the Select Board to acquire by gift, purchase, taking eminent domain or otherwise easements and land necessary for laying out and accepting ways and any apparent drainage, utility, or other easements related to the ways with respect to Adair Place as laid out by the Selectmen pursuant to the Mass General Laws, Chapter 41 and 82, and as identified in Article 15 of the Special Town Meeting Warrant for November 14th, 2024, incorporated by reference therein, and further, to move that the town accept as a public way Adair Place as laid out by the Select Board pursuant to the Mass General Laws, Chapter 41 and 83, and shown on the plan entitled Acre Brook Drive, definitive subdivision plan of land in Hadley, Massachusetts, prepared for DJ Development Corp., dated April 6, 2006, and last revised April 22, 2006, as set forth in Article 15 of the special town meeting warrant for November 14, 2024. And further, to move that the town authorize the select board and any other board or commission of the town of Hadley whose actions are necessary or appropriate to carry out the purpose of Article 15 to take all such actions that carry out the purposes of Article 15. And further, to move that the town authorize the select board to accept any grants, gifts, or other monies made available to the town and expend any such monies as are necessary to carry out the purpose of Article 15. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Article 15. Jane.
Mr. Moderator, I need to make an announcement before Jane does her thing.
Yes.
So I just want people to be aware that my firm's name is in the lead up to this motion. We did the work well before I was on the select board and well before this was going to come before town meeting. So I just want to make everybody clear that there is no conflict here.
So by accepting Adair Place as a public way, we are taking over from the developer, care of the road that is his responsibility until the development is done. We have done this many other times. It's a formality.
Edwin, microphone.
It's down off 47 on the way to the mountain.
Any questions or comments concerning Article 15? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of Article 15, please raise your cards. Thank you. Those opposed? 161 to 1. Article 15 passes. Article 16, town-wide speed limit. Move that the town hereby accept the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 90, Section 17C, and further move the town establish a speed limit of 25 miles per hour on all roadways in the town that are thickly settled or business districts that are not state highways. Select Board recommends 400. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Randy?
Yes. So this article will allow the select board to install or at their discretion have signs installed that say townwide speed limit 25 miles per hour unless otherwise posted. The purpose of this is so that we don't have to put speed limit signs in every neighborhood in town. There's maybe 6 or 7 roads that come into town that are town roads. Route 9 is not one of them that these signs would be allowed to be put on. And if you're curious to see how this works, drive up 47 into Sunderland. As soon as you get in Sunderland, you're going to see a sign that says 25 miles per hour, townwide speed limit, and 50 feet after that, speed limit 40. So, but what this does is will allow the police force to enforce the speed limits in these thickly settled areas without having signs everywhere.
Tony Fighting, Cold Spring Lane. Randy, you said it yourself. You described what happens in Sunderland, and people laughed because it's a bad idea. The first time I drove down there, I hit the brakes, and then I was confused when I saw the 40 sign. It took me a few times through before I realized what they were trying to do. I still have no idea where I'm supposed to be driving 25 in Sunderland. I think very few people do. It causes confusion. If people drive 25, if people see that, they're frightened, they're going to be confused. Some people may drive 25. And the chief will tell you that speed kills, high speed kills, but slow speed is dangerous as well. It causes accidents. People may be driving 25, they'll try to pass. They'll cause, it's a hazard as well. Confusion is definitely a hazard. But the bottom line is, very quickly, is that I think it's I think it's just wrong on its face. We have a Constitution, a Fourth Amendment, and a traffic stop is a seizure. It's a search and seizure. It's a seizure. And I think it's just not, it's just not fair to stop someone who's going about their business, and they may be going 30 miles an hour, to have them go through the stress of a traffic stop, but it is stressful, and then have them maybe have to pay a ticket, hundreds of dollars a ticket. Maybe their insurance goes up. A lot of things because they didn't read the fine print on a sign 5 miles away, or they didn't understand that the zoning, where if we're in a business district or a thickly settled district, it's just not fair. And many of us here, like myself, can remember when we had 1 or 2 police officers. We've invested in our police department. We have, I don't know how many, 17, 18 full-time officers. We have cruisers, radar, everything else. And I'm all for that. I think, but what we shouldn't do is it shouldn't be easy. It should never be that easy to stop someone to have a search and a seizure. I think this is just wrong on its face.
Hi, Jessica Kim, 35 West Street. As many of you may know, pedestrian accidents are up across the country. If you know me, you know that this is very dear to my heart. Anything we can do to make the streets of our town safer for people on foot, on wheelchairs, on bicycles, let's do it. Thank you.
Shell, are you working your way up? Okay.
Shel Horowitz, 16 Barstow Lane. My first question is, if this passes, what roads would have the higher speed limits?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
You know, the 25 except where posted, where is it going to be posted higher? Just, I think we kind of need that information to understand what we're voting on. Chief Mason's shaking his head.
Mitch Cook, Police Lieutenant. So this would be 25 miles an hour unless otherwise posted.
Right.
If it's already posted, it's staying that speed limit.
Okay.
Stay local.
Hi, Brian Carroll, Breckenridge Road, Hadley, Mass. So I don't know how many times that I have driven and not noticed a sign, a speed limit sign, but I try to stay within the speed limit. To see one sign as you enter a town and as distracted drivers are nowadays, it's probably a lot of people aren't going to see that. So people are going to get pulled over and not know what the speed limit is. And I drive around town a lot, and most of the roads have speed limit signs on it. So I'm not sure where this is going or where this is coming from. And honestly, I think 25 is 5 miles over what a school speed limit is. Kind of seems a little low to me, but I don't know. It's
This comes from the community. We receive requests year-round to have the speed limit posted. This will be an educational use, not enforcement.
Any other questions or comments concerning Article 16?
Dina Friedman, 16 Barstow Lane. I have a question. Is this just going to be a sign like that? What I have found very helpful in Hadley are the electronic signs that tell you what your speed, what the speed is and what your speed is. And that, I think, is, you know, if this is about educational and keeping the streets safe rather than, uh-oh, you didn't see the sign, you missed, and now you're, so that would make a big difference. Like, how many of the, will there be electronic signs? Where will they be? Rather than, oh, you passed one and that's it. So that would, I think, be a very different thing.
We're going to be continuing to add those annually as grant funding allows.
Any other questions or comments? Article 16. Seeing none, move to a vote. All in favor of Article 16, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? This is going to be a close one. Andy, do me a favor. Okay, if you are opposed, please keep your cards up. Let's do a count. Okay, put this down. Thank you so much for your patience. Appreciate that. Wanted to get a good count. Article 16 passes by a vote of 61 to 37. Article 17. Move the town amend Section 218 of the town's general bylaws by adding a new Section 218-5A and replacing Section 218-9 in its entirety as set forth in Article 17 of the special town meeting warrant for November 14th, 2024, incorporated by reference herein. Is there a second? Second. All right. Article 17. Jim, I think you're usually up on these.
All right, little explanation here. We have a planning board. We also have a bylaw review committee that is appointed by the selectmen. I'm on both, and I'm chairman of both. Lucky you get to hear me for the next several articles. Anyways, the bylaw committee is, the charge of the bylaw committee is to look at the town bylaws, upgrade them where necessary, leave ones that are working fine alone. And some people have come forward to the bylaw committee requesting changes or additions or new bylaws. This particular one, this bylaw is kind of in place, but it really is more about upgrading it. And a lot of this has been brought together. Tim Nyhart here, has he already gone home? There's Tim, perfect, good. Anyways, in a nutshell, this is really about putting waste in the streets. And we're not, first of all, it's impossible to mow your lawn and not get some grass in the street. That's not what this is about. This is about people that purposely blow their grass into the street, and when you go by them, the street looks as green as their lawn. And this presents hazards to bicycles, motorcyclists, et cetera, basically two-wheeled vehicles when it rains and stuff like that. Tim can explain this a lot more. It's also about, putting dirt in street, waste, everything like that. This is not about a farmer coming out of a field, with a dirty wheel harrow and getting dirt on the dirt on the road. That's also virtually impossible to prevent. A little bit of grass when you mow your lawn is not the concern. It's when the grass, like I said, streets look green when you go by it. I'll let Tim put a little bit more into this, but this falls under the criminal disposition bylaw that will be enforced by the building inspector or his designee. Pardon? Non-criminal, I'm sorry, non-criminal disposition, not the criminal, non-criminal disposition, not criminal disposition. Sorry about that. Tim, please.
I'm the acting moderator till the moderator gets back. So, Mr. Nyhart, please.
Tim Nyhart, 16 Kosher Drive. I'm on the bylaw committee. Generally, I think Jim really said it perfectly on what this is about. There are numerous areas of town with the landscape contractors that are purposely throwing everything into the street. Some of them do clean it up. They put it out there and they use their blowers and pile it up. But that's not safe for anybody on a motorcycle. You can come around a corner and see this pile. The last thing you want to do is hit a pile of wet grass or leaves or something like that. And that's all it's about. It's certainly, like Jim said, it is not for the person that's just mowing and some of it goes out in the street. That's not what it's about. It's just trying to make things a little bit safer for bicyclists and motorcycles, because what we're seeing is too many people actually blowing everything into the street. And that's all we're asking. Let's put this in. We have it for snow. Let's do it for the yard waste and things like that.
Edwin Matusko, 116 Stockbridge Street. Hey, it works.
What's that?
It works.
Yes, the microphone works, yes.
Yes. What about leaves?
It's leaves too.
So will they come in, there are sometimes the trees will leave leaves.
Leaves present a unique issue. When the wind is blowing like it was 2 weeks ago, the street is covered with leaves, okay? There's no possible way you can prevent that, and anybody riding any kind of a two-wheeled vehicle on wet leaves and they slip and fall, that they should know better. We're talking about somebody where the street is clean and they're blowing their leaves into the street. I mean, I don't know how often that happens, but I noticed since this has been brought up to the bylaw committee, driving around town during the summer, you can see some places where, the blacktop is nice and black, suddenly it's green. Somebody obviously blew their grass into the street. And it's not a lot, but there is some places and some people that do it.
Andy Morris, Friedman, 45 Roosevelt Street. As a cyclist, I really do appreciate this bylaw because it can be really dangerous hitting a patch of that cut grass. And you don't have to dump your yard waste in the street. You can do what we've been doing for years, is we dump it on our neighbor's lawn.
If you have a dog, that's a good trick too. Any other questions or comments regarding Article 17? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of Article 17, please raise your cards. This is a majority vote. Thank you. You can put them down. All those opposed?
No, this is simple. It's an order. I'll drag it by, I'll throw it.
161 to 1. Article 18. Move the town place a question on the ballot at the May 20th, 2025 annual town election that asks the town whether the residents of the town of Hadley will vote to convert the constables elected by Chapter 53 of the general laws of the town of Hadley to constables appointed by the Select Board pursuant to the Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 91A, and further to move that if the ballot question is approved in the affirmative by the residents of the town of Hadley, to amend Chapter 53 of the general bylaws by deleting it in its entirety. Is there a second? All right, moved and seconded. Jim, you're back up.
Yep. This is another one from the bylaw committee. This gets a little bit involved. Constables, back when I was 15, 16, 17 years old, there were 6 of them. They were all elected. That's all we had for policemen. By state law, a constable has all the power and authority of a duly appointed policeman with all the training, etc. A constable elected requires no training. this bylaw is not against any constable that has ever served in Hadley or is presently serving. This is looking forward to avoid a problem. A constable, like I said, has all the authority of a duly appointed policeman with none of the training. A regular policeman, if they are not a good person, they were dealt with accordingly by the police chief or by the select board. A elected constable, the only way that constable can be elected if we happen to get a not so nice person is we the people have to go through a recall and recall them through a recall election. Nobody in town can remove them except by the election. That's state law. Okay, so we're looking forward, trying to avoid a problem, get the constables appointed, recommended by the police chief, the select board appoints them. If we happen to get somebody that may not be so nice, it's a lot simpler to remove them. It's not a matter of you're fired. I mean, you've still got to go through due process, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but it simply makes it simpler.
By the way, the select board recommends 400.
Jim Wallace, 28 Middle Street. I reluctantly asked the question because I would like to get through the agenda. Do we have a quorum in the room?
Question of quorum. It's a question of quorum. Andy, can you please come count the number of heads.
You gotta have heads with cards.
Yep. Everybody please hold your card up. We got to count. Count yourself.
I do have a card, Doctor.
Yes.
He was off by what I was up here talking to the town council.
Okay. All right. We have a quorum of 108. Thank you all for staying. It's appreciated. All right. We vote on Article 18?
Yes. Article 18 was, no, we didn't. No, we didn't.
We didn't? Okay. So the quorum question was called in before we got a chance to vote on Article 18, which is what we just heard the discussion of with the leaves and the grass and the two-wheelers and things like that. All those in favor of Article 18, please raise your cards. All right, thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? Unanimous, Jess. 108. Oh, there was opposed? Yeah. I'm sorry, okay, 107 to 108. I mean, 107 to 1. Let's get that straight. Article 19, move the town amend under Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 5, Section 17.16 of the zoning bylaws of the town of Hadley, deleting it in its entirety. Jim, come on up.
The planning board recommends this article unanimously. Now, this is a majority vote. I hate to take... The
No,
ADU?
This one's two-thirds.
This is,
Oh, I'm sorry.
this
I'm
is to
thinking
eliminate a
Article
section
20.
of the
I'm sorry.
zoning bylaws. It's a
bylaw
two-third.
Chapter 17 of the Hadley zoning bylaw is about transfer of development rights. 17.16 is one sentence in that section of the bylaw that references staged housing. That bylaw has expired, and the Attorney General, the Supreme Judicial Court ruled it illegal. So in any case, this is a housekeeping article, and it's really just a matter of taking that one sentence out because it's irrelevant anyways.
That's pretty straightforward. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we will move to a vote. Article 19, all in favor, raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All opposed? Doo-doo-doo, doo-doo-doo. That one's unanimous, Jess. Article 20. Move that the town amend under Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 5 of the zoning bylaw for the town of Hadley as set forth in Article 20 of the special town meeting warrant for November 14th, 2024, incorporated herein by reference. Is there a second?
Second.
Planning Board recommends 500. Jim.
This article, Article 20, is a majority vote. Normally, any zoning bylaw is a two-thirds vote, but I don't know, a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, something like that, the state decided that if the zoning article deals with affordable housing, it only requires a majority vote. So this article only requires a majority vote. I just want everybody to understand that. The state also recently, I'm sure everybody's heard about it, has made accessory apartments in every town in the state a by right use. Hadley has had an accessory apartment bylaw for a number of years, required a special permit from the planning board. That is no longer the case. You can now build, and this article really just puts out some guidelines for people to follow. It is still a by right use, but you need to come to the planning board with the plans, make sure everything is in order. The planning board will review it at a regularly scheduled meeting. No public notice required. No abutters need to be noticed. It's just a matter. It's like a checklist for any applicant to make sure that this complies with zoning and setbacks and stuff like that. The accessory unit by the state, it is the smaller of 900 square feet or 50% of the size of the original home. It can be within the house, or it can be a detached, like a garage or something like that, that is converted. And the planning board and the town don't anticipate a run on accessory dwelling units because this part of the state promotes this whole affordable housing. However, the rest of the state, you still got to comply with electrical, plumbing, septic, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to use myself as an example. I've got a house, I live at 12 Norwalk Drive, I've got a shed in my backyard. It's 1,000 square feet. I could easily convert that to 900 square feet. However, it is too close to the rear setback. It's 15 feet. It needs to be 40 feet for a residence. It needs to be connected to the septic system. It is built to 2x4 construction. It was built in the mid-'80s. It does not meet current building code for insulation, electrical, plumbing. There's no toilet, everything else. So it all has to be brought in. A ballpark number, probably the cheapest to convert my shed to a 900 square foot dwelling would be somewhere around $250,000 to $300,000. That is not an exaggeration. Those are numbers that contractors have given us. So that's why we don't anticipate a run on this accessory unit. If it's in the house, it could be a little bit different because somebody may be able, depending on the size of the house, to convert something in the house. This is a bit of a long explanation. I simply want people to understand what this bylaw entails so that people don't get all concerned, oh, Hadley's going to be overrun with accessory dwelling units. Will there be some? Absolutely there will be some. Will there be a bundle? Probably not. But we need this in place so that we can have the checklist to make sure it helps the building inspector and everybody else involved to simply do this properly. Will there be tiny homes? Probably not, because there's some conflict in the state law. Building code, you can get away with a 90-square-foot house. Sanitary code requires 320 feet or 350 something square feet. I'm not exactly sure the number, but it's a much different number. So there's all kinds of conflicts within the state building codes that the affordable housing that they put forward, they're like this. They don't, it's confusing. And even for the current building inspector and plumbing inspector, they're like, what's going to happen? So, you know, I'm not trying to scare anybody. I just want everybody to know kind of where this is without making too much of a big deal about it.
Any questions or comments on Article 20? Let me turn the mic to yourself there.
Mark Dunn, 20 Hadley Place. I just want to add to what Jim said, that we're not doing this because we want to do this. The state put this on us, and if we don't change this, then we will have less control. So this gives us more control over those.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, move to a vote. All in favor of Article 20, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? Looks like unanimous, Jess. Last article of the evening. I want to thank everybody for toughing it out tonight. It's wonderful. Thank you. Move that the town amend under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 5, the zoning bylaw of the town of Hadley as set forth in Article 21 of the special town meeting warrant of November 14th, 2024, and incorporated by reference herein. Jim, you're back up. Second. Thank you.
The planning board makes no recommendation on this article. The vote was 401, and we have, this is basically going to rezone for a senior overlay district the land bounded by Russell Street, North Maple Street, Rocky Hill Road, and Route 116. It's a big rectangle. And there's a developer that would like to put senior housing in. And the reason the planning board has not taken a stand on this is because this was basically by petition. The planning board agreed to put this on the warrant. And when something comes to us by petition, if the planning board holds the public hearing, it's 21 days before the town meeting, then the planning board has the option of not only yes or no, but they could also make the no recommendation. So it's like a neutral recommendation. That's what this is about. And there's some people I've heard since this has come forward, they think it's great. Some people think it's not so great. So, you know, the developer is here. I don't know if they want to make a presentation, if Kurt wants to let them. But if there's questions about what's being proposed, the proposed developer that would like to put the senior housing in and his attorney is here, and they can answer these questions a whole lot better than I'm going to be able to.
Okay. If you would care to make a presentation, I think that's only fair to read.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
If I may, please. The proponent of this article is a client of mine. I will not be participating in this discussion.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for staying to Article 21. Somebody had to be last, so it was us.
Right, you got to talk right into the microphone. I mean, right up on top of it.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, okay. So our proposal is to, as shown on the, our proposal is, as shown on the slide here, to extend. How about if I hold? Yeah, thank you. Our proposal is to extend the senior overlay district to include the rectangle shown on the map on the screen. Our interest here is to propose, if you approve this tonight, to work with the Babb family family to propose a senior development on the Babb land at the corner of North Maple Street and Rocky Hill Road. The Babb members of the Babb family are here tonight, and I think they could ask, you could ask them any questions you want to. Right now, the senior overlay district stops at Spruce Hill Road, so we would need your permission to have the senior overlay be here. This doesn't mean if you approve this tonight that the bulldozers go tomorrow. We still have to seek planning board approval to accept our plan. So we still have to do the wetlands, the soils, the endangered species, all of that before we can even go to the planning board with a plan. There is some misinformation out there. I know I read in the paper that there would be 22 units. We don't know how many units we would put on this property. Your bylaw allows for 50. We're not asking at all to change your senior bylaw, not at all. We're just asking you to designate this area to allow it to happen. So I read in the paper that it was going to be 22 units. We did do a study to see how many single-family lots in a subdivision code could go on this property, and it's either 22 or 23 single-family home lots this land would accommodate, we believe. As I said, we haven't done the wetlands yet, so, you know, it could be. So that is basically our proposal. Some of you may know I created a senior housing development called East Street Commons off of East Street that contained 35 units, single-family homes, a couple duplexes in there. That would be the process we would go through here and try to develop here. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
State his name and address. State his name and address.
For the record, could you provide your name and your living address and name of the business?
My name is Barry Robert, 200 Bay Road, Amherst, Mass.
Okay. And Barry, do you have a company name? Roberts Builders. Okay. Will that suffice? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Barry, please don't sit down because you're going to want to respond to this. As I recall, when you did the East Street Common development, there was a legal requirement for affordable units to be part of that, and there was a waiver given because you put money into a fund that I'm not sure the town has been able to utilize. I know a lot of people in town who really can't afford, their kids can't afford to stay here. I would like to know what percentage you plan for affordable housing and whether you're going to actually build them or put them in the fund again.
I believe the number is 15%, and the planning board has let Mr. Roberts know very firmly that they will all be on the site and not moved, or no donation. They will actually be affordable senior housings.
Thank you.
Agree to it.
I second that.
Yeah, I have a couple questions for you as well.
Michael, routine.
The current site would support...
Michael, you got to say your name and where you live.
I'm sorry, 113, Michael Doctor, 113 Bay Road. It's late, sorry. The current land, assuming there was no wetlands on it, as you said, would support 22 houses on it potentially. I assume you're a developer and you have a pretty clear idea how many units a overlay would allow you. Obviously, it allows you to build much more densely, and so obviously it would be much more like the East Street Commons. So how many units are you planning here, just to give us an idea what it is we're talking about?
I wouldn't want to speculate, but I think it might be somewhere between 35 and 50. Your bylaw allows 50. Okay. We kind of envisioning a semicircular loop between North Maple Street and Rocky Hill Road. And once we have your permission here tonight, hopefully, that we'll do a study and go to the planning board and see how many really fit on there.
Okay. Well, I guess my follow-up point is that if we do this, and I think it's probably a good idea that we have senior housing and that it be tightly clustered and use land efficiently, but if we do this as a town, it should be acknowledged that we are bestowing a very generous gift on the current owner and the developer here, because they could have a 22-lot development and now a 50-lot development, and 10 years ago, those lots were worth $25,000 a lot to a developer once you put the roads in and so much. I'm sure it's worth way more. You do the math, that's over $700,000, closer to $1 million in a value and gift that we're bestowing on this development. And I just think that you ought to come back to the town with a proposal of how you could donate somebody to preserve some farmland, make some more affordable housing available, because it just seems like...
Bill Dwyer, Planning Board at 388 River Drive. We're not allowed under state law to do that kind of quid pro quo.
I know we're not. I'm asking the developer.
Yep. It's not allowed under the zoning law.
No, you're not, because you're the zoning commission, right? I'm just suggesting that he might gain some votes here if they did that, that's all.
Amy Fiden, 5 Cold Spring. I just have a question about the sewer. Are you planning on sending that to Amherst, or are you going to hook up to Hadley Sewer? And I just worry about the capacity.
Okay, before I did talk to the Babb family, I did talk to Scott from DPW, and he said there was capacity enough in your system to take it. Okay. So that would be the plan. I would like to point out that the difference, you approved a subdivision tonight that the town will take over. The requirement under the senior overlay district is that the property will never be owned by the town. So any infrastructure in that subdivision will be taken care of by the condo. So the roads, the sewer, the water. If the water main breaks, you don't have to bring your new excavator. The condo association is responsible to fix it. So I think that's a big difference, but you still get the taxes, you get the water and the sewer fee, but you don't have to repair or maintain the infrastructure.
Thank you.
David Phil, 39 Knightley Road. I support... Nope, just me. No. Yep. So I support this proposal for a few different reasons. We've seen a huge demand for senior housing, seniors that are wanting to downsize, and there's really nothing to downsize into in town, at least not anything that doesn't sell for an outrageous price. Again, as Barry just mentioned, the fact that the infrastructure there will be maintained by the association versus the town. I mean, we just accepted a road tonight that forever will be our responsibility, water, sewer, paving, etc. This will not. The land is not currently preserved in APR. So if we shoot this proposal down tonight, another developer could come in tomorrow, put a bunch of single-family homes there, and like every developer wants to do, when they're done, say, here, town, here's a road for you to maintain. So in my mind, this is the best option for, we get the benefits of the tax revenue, a place for our seniors to go, without the added cost of maintaining the infrastructure.
I'll do Molly Keegan, 16 Hadley Place. But I do want to point out, just for further information, this project was presented to the Housing and Economic Development Committee. Again, I don't think we took a formal vote, but it had the support of our committee. Also came to the select board. Again, no vote taken, but general support from the select board. Echoing everything that David Phil just said, but adding to that, again, revenue. We keep talking about the fact that, we can't keep nickel and diming, and we need to, I use the expression, make the pie bigger. So we have a housing production plan. We have an age dementia-friendly study that was done. The master plan, this project, or I should say this zoning, would be in alignment with all of that, and ultimately it would generate some pretty good property tax revenue and water and sewer revenue for the town down the road if a project actually goes forward. So again, tonight we're focused on the zoning just to allow the discussion to continue to happen.
Kevin Jekanowski, 38 Roosevelt Street. I'm just asking how this is going to affect traffic on Rocky Hill Road. When you have 55 units, not everybody's, and if it's senior housing, not everybody's going to be sitting at home, especially if there's a proposed by the same developer some type of low-income housing on University Drive. It seems like Rocky Hill Road is the only access way the people are going to use to get to Northampton and points in that direction. And now if you go down Rocky Hill Road any day after 4 o'clock, it's basically a traffic jam, and it's not that straight of a road in some areas. Thank you.
Based on experience of East Drive, it is basically 55 plus. Most of those people are retired. There are a few that work. Typically, they have one, maybe 2 cars per house. And you have not a lot of traffic of people going to work. Basically, it's people going shopping, a trip a day, maybe. There was minimal traffic. We were expecting a fair amount of traffic on East Commons Drive as a planning board. And I've driven by there a lot, and you seldom see cars coming in or out of East Commons Drive. So I would guess, based on that experience alone, that this will have minimal impact to traffic on Rocky Hill Road and North Maple Street.
Tony Fiden, Cold Spring. I just have a question for the planning board through the moderator. Let's say that we pass a zoning change tonight. Mr. Roberts changes his mind, or the family changes his mind. Would the zoning stay changed, and another developer who might not offer the same benefits, could they come in? Is this specific to the developer, or is it on its own?
I'm not quite, yeah.
I can reiterate the question if you don't.
Bill Dwyer. It is specific to the property, not to the developer. But a new developer could only put 55 and over housing in, and only after getting a special permit from the planning board to do it. So we would have another look at if Mr. Roberts and the Babs go in different directions and you come in with a plan, we'll talk about your plan when that happens.
Mark Dunn, 20 Hadley Place. I'm also on the planning board. I'm also chairing the Affordable Housing Committee, but I'm here as a resident. As a little backstory, a few years ago, Mr. Roberts came here with a senior housing project where he came to town meeting, he wanted to expand the existing district across the bike path behind Newton Lane. And I heard the people that lived there say they didn't want it, and I spoke against it. In this case, my family's actually a direct neighbor. Our families, this would actually be in their backyard. And with all of my knowledge of the options that the Babs have, from rumors I've heard, they would like to sell. And there was one option that came before the planning board. That was a public meeting, and it was a developer from out of state, and it was over 200 units. Now, that would not have been able to tie, from what I understand from talking to Scott, that would not have been able to tie into our system. That would have had to go over to the Amherst. This system, I believe Scott said, if it was up to 50 units, that would be okay. We could handle that coming down this way, coming down North Maple. I also think that another option of, if we didn't pass this, they could sell to someone else, and it would be, as we said, 20, 22 houses, and we don't have the control as neighbors. We don't know what kind of it. You could build a house and use it for revenue, and it would be a student stuffer with parties and noise. With the senior housing, we feel like this is the best option in our, we'd love to just see a field, but we think that the senior housing would be in our best interest. So, thank you.
Andy Friedman, 45 Roosevelt Street. I recall in the past that other developers have made donations to the town, particularly to the Woodchuck Fund, to help preserve farmland and expand APRs elsewhere in town. Very generous donations. And although I understand that the planning board cannot require such a donation in order to change the zoning, such a donation would be required in order for me to vote yes.
Lauren Croce, 9 Meadowbrook Drive. I just want to clarify, because I'm terrible at reading maps, but someone mentioned the development on University and Maple, no, at Rocky Hill, where Pleasant Trees was. That is going to be developed as additional housing. And so I just want to make sure that's not the other red line, that that's the next one up. So in other words, 116 and University Drive are not the same thing, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
the
northern.
The right red line is Route 116. University Drive is the first white line
Good.
from the left side.
Got it. Okay, so I think there's enough room for the extra traffic. Thanks.
Marion Chapman, 35 Newton Lane.
Very close to the microphone.
Marion Chapman, 35 Newton Lane. I just have a question. We have a lot of land that has been designated for senior housing. And I'm wondering if this is just not spot zoning? And why isn't he building in the area that the town has designated as senior housing? And if the town wants to look at it, perhaps they should go back and look at all the options instead of just doing spot zoning here and there.
So, Bill Dwyer again, Planning Board. This is not spot zoning. If it were just the Babb Farm, it would be spot zoning. The developer made a decision in consultation with his attorney to propose rezoning a larger parcel. 3/4 of that, maybe 2/3 to 3/4 of that, as a practical matter, would not be developed with senior housing. Only the Babb property really lends itself to senior housing development without first demolishing existing structures, but that's exactly why it was designed that way, so it is not spot zoning. As to the rest of our zone, when we initially created the zone, we did it along Route 9. The central business district from the bridge to Spruce Hill Road. Various parcels in that area have been developed over time for other uses. When we first adopted senior housing, we didn't have a climbing gym. We had several fields along Route 9. Most of those have been developed for other purposes. In the 14 years or so that we've had senior housing, Barry Roberts is the only developer that came forward and actually did anything. That's not to say that there are other proposals pending. It may come up to Springtown meeting to tweak the other part of the zone and change some of the density regulations, which in turn might lead to senior housing in the original zone, but we'll see how that plays out. But we're constantly looking at adjusting what we have to work with, and as has been mentioned, we have a housing production plan. We are studying other ways of enhancing housing across town.
I'm going to crank it down there.
Quite a bit. Okay, thank you. I'm Jan Peterson, 32 Stockbridge Street, and I'm one of those seniors who wants to get out of my house. I'm a homeowner. I have three-bathroom house. I'm the only person there since my husband passed away. 3/4 of an acre that I have to mow myself, and I'm dying for this to happen. I mean, I'm really looking forward. I want to age in Hadley, and I can't do it unless I can downsize. Thank you.
Hi there, my name's Helen Blatz, and I live at 9 Meadowbrook Drive in Hadley, not very far from where this is proposed. I thank you for bringing another idea to Hadley for senior housing. I really think it's necessary. I, too, would love to age in place, but I do have a couple of questions, and I understand it's very premature. But can you please tell us, what are you thinking in terms of hopefully cluster housing? Also, generally, how large a property, square footage-wise, and price point. Because again, I'd love to stay in Hadley, but if you're thinking along the lines of East Street Commons, which is a beautiful development, but I couldn't sell my house for what it would take to be able to move into a property like that. And I know I'm not alone.
So it's a little premature for me to tell you how much it's going to cost to buy a home there. I have to figure out how many units I can fit on there practically, how much it's going to cost to develop it. I know for sure I'm going to have to put in a sewer pump system because I can gravity the top part of it into North Maple, off of North Maple Street, but once I go down the hill towards Rocky Hill, there's no sewer on Rocky Hill. So that means I have to put a sewer pump down there and pump it all the way back up to North Maple. So the preliminary home that we've looked at is 1,300 to 1,500 square feet with a one-car garage. That's what we've kind of thought about for this project. Quite different than East Street Commons, smaller, more compact. Thank you. But one of the bylaw requires only 2 bedrooms. We can't have more than 2 bedrooms. One of the nice things about the bylaw, it allows us to cluster. It allows us to build homes closer together and keep land around open. So, as I think I mentioned before, my vision is a semicircular road that would tie between Rocky Hill Road and North Maple, and to build off of that road. You know, if you approve this tonight, tomorrow the engineers go to work to try to figure out what this project looks like. So, thank you.
Okay, Edwin Matusco, 116 Stockbridge Street.
Get right on top of that microphone, Edwin.
Okay, that better? How do you plan on, I'm looking at this and I can't see why this isn't spot zoning. No disrespect intended. But how are you going to enforce the rules and regulations? How come that a senior can have his kids or her kids stay there and not have 9 cars in front of the yard, which happens in town now?
Oh, hello, yeah, okay. Already shut this off, it's on, all right. First of all, it's only 2 bedrooms maximum, some are 1 bedroom.
Yeah.
So you're not going to have, he has a homeowners association. So the association governs a lot of these issues that you see because they're a governing body of the neighborhood. And they have authority to find I don't know, I take that back. I don't know what all the stipulations are and how they enforce. I don't want to get into that, but that's all in there. But take a look at East Street Common as an example.
I have.
It is, you don't see more than 1 or 2 cars. Yeah, sometimes people visit, absolutely. Sometimes you'll see 2 or 3 cars, I mean 4 cars. I'm not going to deny that. However, on a routine basis, there's 1 or 2 cars. That's all the 1 or 2 people living there. They may have a grandchild or a child, visiting now and then, but for the most part, it's very well regulated, strictly regulated by the zone bylaw. It's enforceable by themselves, and I would anticipate the same kind of issues here with enforcement as you do on East Street Common, which, at least as far as the planning board goes, even I know as a resident, is minimal, if any. People comply. They basically squeal on each other, for lack of a better word, because they want a quiet neighborhood. They didn't move there to have a party.
I hope not. But I'm just above that square, my house. I really don't want this project. I'm sorry, I don't. I don't want this project at all.
My name is Erica Hollister, and I live at 225 Middle Street, and I'd like to call the vote.
All right, all those in favor of moving directly to a vote, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? All right, 105 to 2. All right, we're going to move directly to a vote. All those in favor of Article 21, this is a 2/3 majority required. Please raise your cards. You can put those down. All those opposed? 1, 2. Yes, we're voting on the actual article right now. Article 21 is what we're voting on. Is there confusion? Okay, all right, let's put this down. If you are in favor of Article 21, what we've just been discussing, please raise your cards. You want it to pass, raise your cards. Okay, thank you. You can put those down. If you do not want Article 21 to pass, please raise your cards. Keep them up. Okay, I count 12.
I'm abstaining, Mr. Conrad.
All right. 95 to 12. Article 21 passes by 2/3 majority. I want to thank you again. Do I have a motion to dissolve the meeting? Is there a second? All those in favor? God bless you all for coming out tonight. Thank you. Thank you for your patience.